Chapter 91, Roy's Ultimate Move. Perhaps because of the magic power virus, Roy was now very sensitive to the fluctuations of magic power. When he entered the underground laboratory and saw Caesar's body in the culture tank, Roy noticed that there was no trace of magic power in this body. In terms of time, even if Caesar had found the woman of the eclipse and gave birth to a half-human half-demon descendant, this demon-human body would still need more than 10 years to grow into its current state. However, when Caesar was in the abyss, he had abandoned his original body and placed his soul in the below 10 pillar to return to this world. It was impossible for him to spend more than 10 years waiting for this body to grow slowly, so this demon-human body was forced to mature through black technology. Precisely because of this demon-human body was actually just born not too long ago. No matter how powerful a demon-human body was, what the possibility of it surpassing the demon bloodline was, it was impossible to go against the laws of reality. Without the accumulation of time, it was impossible for this body to produce magic power out of thin air. Caesar's original body was gone. Even if this body was his child, with his bloodline, and could allow him to adapt quickly after the soul transfer, he could still only start from scratch in order to obtain magic power. However, Roy then thought of a problem. Caesar was originally an upper-middle rank demon, and his original demon body had powerful magic power. Therefore, after his soul transferred over, and he started from the beginning, it would inevitably cause him a huge sense of difference, just like a millionaire suddenly becoming a poor beggar. It was not easy to adapt to this difference. With Caesar's intelligence, it was impossible for him not to consider this point after plotting for so long in this world. This made Roy realize that Caesar likely made some preparations. Fat Tiger's sense of smell was very sharp. When Roy and Caesar fought in the abyss, he had already remembered Caesar's scent. Before Caesar had abandoned his body, he had also been in this laboratory, so the moment Fat Tiger entered, he smelled Caesar's scent. Thus, Roy used the spiritual connection to get Fat Tiger to act alone and look around the laboratory to see if Caesar had touched anything and left a stronger smell. As for Roy, he went forward to argue with Caesar and stall for time. Similarly, Caesar had just transferred his soul into this body, and he still needed some time to adapt to it, so he also chatted with Roy about the topic of demon-human bodies. It was only when Roy felt that it was about time and pointed out the biggest problem with his body that Caesar realized in horror that it was bad. However, Fat Tiger had already leapt onto the ground and appeared in front of everyone. The middle head had a scroll-like object in his mouth as he ran toward Roy. "No. Put that thing down." As soon as he saw the thing in Fat Tiger's mouth, Caesar immediately panicked. "Get that damn dog to put down my thing." However, Roy ignored him and reached out to take the scroll from Fat Tiger's mouth and rewarded Fat Tiger's 3 heads with a scratch. "Good job." Roy looked at the scroll and found that it had an extremely heavy smell of blood. The texture and material of the scroll were also very strange. After opening the scroll, he found that the scroll was written with scarlet demon characters. He sniffed and found that the ink used for writing was human blood, so Roy guessed the material of the scroll. "Human skin and blood, are you using this thing to store souls temporarily?" Roy asked Caesar. "That's right." Caesar calmed down and said, "But what can you do even if you found this thing? There's a seal arranged by my magic power on it. No one can open it except for me." "Is that so?" Roy asked thoughtfully. "Can I ask how many souls are sealed in it?" "Why should I tell you?" Caesar's eyes flickered as he suddenly changed his mind. "All right. I can tell you, but let's make a deal." "What deal?" Roy asked. "There are 2,000 high-grade souls sealed in this soul contract," Caesar said shockingly. "These souls were all tortured and suffered when they were alive. I can help you remove the seal and obtain these 2,000 souls, but you have to promise me that you will leave immediately and return to the abyss after getting them." However, Roy rejected without even thinking. "No, I said earlier that I'd be very troubled if I don't kill you. So you have to die." For Roy, Caesar was his mission target. If he could not kill Caesar, he would be the one being hunted down by execution demons. It was impossible for Roy to spit out this soul contract sealing 2,000 souls after it fell into his hands. It was already his, so why did he have to make a deal with Caesar over it? Moreover, after killing Caesar, Roy could also obtain a reward from Rogeros. It was more profitable, no matter how he looked at it. There was no point in saying that there was no enmity between them. There was no need for any reason for fighting between demons in the first place. Upon hearing Roy's words, Caesar immediately roared, "Why? Aren't you interested in the soul contract? Without me, you definitely won't be able to open the seal." Who told you that I can open it? Roy looked at him strangely. Caesar was stunned. He did not know if Roy was bluffing, but when he heard the affirmative tone, he lost his confidence. His eyes darted around. Caesar suddenly broke free, and the tubes connected to his body fell off. The next second, Caesar broke the culture tank and rushed out. Roy thought that this fellow was going to go all out in desperation, so he immediately prepared to attack. But Caesar unexpectedly turned around and ran in the opposite direction. At the same time, he roared, "Grigory! Stop them!" "Yes, master." The bald man was indeed Grigory, the leader of the Thule Society. In 1944, when he opened the Gate of the Abyss to summon Hellboy, the Allied army had destroyed the summoning ritual, causing him to be sucked into the Gate of the Abyss. Humans were unable to enter the Abyss, so the Gate of the Abyss had instantly destroyed his body. However, Caesar obtained it by chance. He did not eat the soul, but instead tried to send his soul back and helped rebuild a body for his soul. From then on, Grigory became Caesar's demon contractor in this world, and in turn, he summoned Caesar into this world. As far as Grigory was concerned, Caesar was indeed his master. Although Caesar had to remove the demon contract later because his soul was about to enter the demon-human body, Grigory had witnessed the abyss and the power of demons. Even without the demon contract, he still obeyed Caesar. Because Caesar's plan could also help him realize his ambitions. When Caesar escaped and had Grigory intercept Roy, Grigory, who had been long prepared, immediately attacked. He condensed his magic power into an energy ball and pushed it toward Roy. However, it was too weak. Grigory could be considered a sorcerer in this world, but his magic power was really too weak for a middle-ranked demon like Roy. Demons could devour souls to increase their magic power, but humans could not. They could only increase their magic power through meditation, but this world was not a high magic world, and there were no orthodox magic power practice methods. A sorcerer like Grigory might be very powerful for ordinary people, but to Roy, he was just a weak loser. Roy grabbed the magic power ball flying over. With a gentle pinch, it immediately burst, and the overflowing energy did not even cause any ripples. The next moment, Fat Tiger pounced on him ferociously, knocking Grigory to the ground, and bit down with his 3 heads. Grigory died, but he still managed to stall Roy for 2 to 3 seconds. Using this opportunity, Caesar jumped up, breaking through the ceiling of the laboratory, and escaped toward the manor. Although his demon-human body did not have any magic power, it still had extraordinary strength, so this feat was possible. With a whoosh, Roy's demon wings spread out, and he chased through the hole. Caesar wanted to escape, but he would be unable to escape from Roy. Caesar had never had demon wings. It was the case when he was a middle-ranked demon, and it was still the case with his demon-human body. So how could he understand the difference between air forces and infantry? Sure enough, when Roy rushed into the sky, he saw Caesar's escaping figure. Roy accelerated and landed in front of him with a bang. Get lost. Caesar's eyes were already red. He had no way out, so he lowered his shoulder and charged at Roy. However, a thick ice wall suddenly appeared in front of him and rendered his charge useless. The black ice had the effect of absorbing the impact force, and Caesar's heavy strike failed to even break the ice wall. However, Roy removed the ice wall and said, "Forget it. You're about to die anyway, so let me act cool." As he spoke, Roy flipped his wrist over, and a quaint box appeared in his hand. "This thing is called the Haradric Cube," Roy explained to Caesar. "Its only function is to transmute souls." A large number of souls appeared in Roy's hands and were sucked into the Haradric Cube. Roy had obtained these souls along the way. When the box opened again, a pitch-black fallen soul and a colorless noble soul appeared in front of Caesar. Caesar's eyes widened when he saw this, and he said in disbelief, What kind of demon are you? How can you create such a fallen soul?" Caesar felt that his knowledge of demons had been completely subverted. He can get fallen souls without even needing to tempt humans into depravity? "Actually, I don't know either," Roy said as the 2 high-quality souls in his hands disappeared. "All right, it's done." After the 2 souls disappeared, Roy said, "Now, take my ultimate move." With that, Roy waved his right hand at Caesar. Ice tornado. The next second, extremely intense cold air accompanied by a powerful storm emerged. Chapter 92, Legend. The intense cold air formed a vortex-like icy cold current in the storm, and the center of the vortex was where Caesar was. Within a radius of 100 meters, all the plants and trees in the area froze, instantly losing their vitality. Meanwhile, Caesar, who was in the center of the storm, was blown into the sky by the irresistible force. Before he could land, he was frozen in mid-air. The ice tornado finally turned into a twisted pillar of ice that rose into the sky and stood on the ground. At the bottom of the ice pillar, near the ground, was a huge spiral-shaped ice flower. The pitch-black, petal-shaped pieces of ice blossomed with a strange and mysterious beauty under the moonlight. Caesar's demon body was frozen in mid-air, and his body was inside the ice pillar, leaving only his head outside, but it was also frozen. Roy spread his wings, flew up, and grabbed the demon horns on his head. With a twist, he pulled Caesar's head off. Roy's mission was finally completed. Holding Caesar's head, Roy flew in the air and let out a huge roar. The moon contrasted against his figure, turning it into a doomsday-like scene. Broom and the allied soldiers who had chased out of the underground headquarters completely saw this scene. The chill in their hearts made them all shudder. Damn it! The capture mission can go to hell. The colonel leading the team could not help but curse in a low voice. I don't want to fight against such a terrifying demon king. Upon hearing this, the other allied soldiers also hurriedly nodded. Boss, you're right. Let those damned fellows go to hell. There was a reason why they said this. When they had received the order, the operation team actually also had a secret mission. If possible, the upper echelons of the Allies hoped that they could capture the demon, Roy, so that they could conduct supernatural research. However, after witnessing Roy's strength along the way, the soldiers of the operation team had long lost any hope for this mission. Roy descended from the sky and looked at the pitch-black ice flower on the ground. In fact, Roy had created this move in the abandoned village, but he had not materialized it at that time. This was Roy's first move with strong attack power. The name Roy initially defined was Dark Tornado, but the killing effect of this move was mainly the power of frost. Coupled with the definitions of rapid freezing and storm sweeping, it was called Ice Tornado in the end. And because the frost power used by this move came from Roy himself, there was no additional consumption, so just using 300 points of magic power could cover the radius of 100 meters. If Roy was willing to output more magic power, the range would continue to expand. As they walked toward the manor, the operation team soldiers could not help but take a few steps back when they saw Roy coming. Broom could not help but swallow his saliva. When he saw Roy, he could not help but think of Hellboy, not knowing whether his decision to adopt Hellboy was right or wrong. Are all demons so terrifying when they grow up? Alright, I'm done. Roy held Caesar's head and gestured to everyone. The Thill Society has perished. You don't have to worry. Are you going back? Broom asked. Roy nodded. Broom was clearly relieved. To be honest, he was worried that Roy would continue to stay in this world after killing Caesar. If that happened, the world would suffer. The Thill Society had given the Allies such a headache, and if a stronger demon came, they would not know what to do. Roy did not have much time left in this world. Even if he continued to plunder souls, he would not be able to obtain many. The 2,000 high-grade souls in the soul contract that Caesar had left behind could make up for it. What he needed to do now was to find a way to open the seal on it. So, after Fat Tiger brought out the thoroughly damaged Peloton pillar from the underground laboratory, Roy flew into the sky with Fat Tiger and left the manor. As for how Broom and the Allied operation team would break out, it was not Roy's concern. After finding a mountain range and landing, Roy took out the soul contract written in human skin and blood. Roy did not plan on bringing the soul contract back to the Abyss to unseal it. He was afraid that it would attract the greed of other demons, so he planned to undo it before he returned. In fact, the soul contract was just a name. This scroll was not a true contract, but a vessel that could hold souls, a way to preserve souls temporarily. After all, souls would begin to dissipate once exposed, and without a proper way to preserve them, it was impossible to store them for too long. In the soul contract, Roy could feel the fluctuations of Caesar's magic power. This should have been left behind by Caesar before he abandoned his body. The magic power fluctuations were very similar to when he used illusions. If Roy could not simulate the exact same frequency of magic power fluctuations as Caesar, it would be impossible for him to open the seal. But it did not matter. Roy had a cheat. He opened the system interface, drew a key on the blank page, and then defined the key. Key, one-time item. Can remove seals by consuming a corresponding number of souls. This way, there would be almost no soul consumption when he materialized the key. Only when he used it to open the soul contract would it see the strength of the seal, consume the souls Roy carried, and unlock the seal. This was why Roy was so confident. For him, As long as he could create an item that could be defined, he could use this item to do many things that he was unable to do. Now, even if Roy had not learned how to break the seal, he could still remove the seal on the soul contract. Following the disappearance of the key, Roy's stored souls disappeared one by one. When the 9th soul disappeared, a faint light suddenly flashed on the soul contract scroll. The next second, a large number of souls sealed within the scroll immediately gushed out. 1, 2, 10, 100, 1000. It was the first time Roy had seen such a strange scene. These balls of light that sprayed out did not leave but instead gathered around Roy like fireflies, looking quite beautiful. As Caesar had said, each of these souls was far larger than ordinary souls. 2,000 such high-grade souls was a fortune for a demon. Roy had used almost 200 souls to transmute the fallen soul and noble soul. Now, he had replenished them 10 times over. Looking at the number of souls displayed on the system interface, Roy found that he already had 2,482 souls. Moreover, 2,000 souls had high soul power and would function as more souls. Roy was extremely satisfied. To be honest, these 2,000 souls were an unexpected fortune for him because he had never thought that Caesar would actually save so many souls to increase his magic power. If there were a few more demons like Caesar, it would not take Roy long to become a high-rank demon. However, this was only a thought. The souls that demons obtained generally did not last overnight and would be eaten on the spot. It was very rare to store souls like this. This time, it was actually Caesar who was seeking death himself. For a half-human half-demon body, he had not cared about anything else. Roy's thoughts were different from Caesar's. In Roy's opinion, no matter how powerful a demon-human body was, Roy would not pursue it. He had a system and his own way of becoming stronger, so he did not have to risk transferring his soul. After tidying up, Roy took Caesar's head and activated the magic power left on him. He opened a gate of the abyss and disappeared from this world with Fat Tiger. What he did not know was that after he left, Broom and the others tried to remove Caesar's frozen body. Although they had not dared to carry out the mission to capture Roy, if they could get this half-human half-demon body back, the higher-ups would not blame them. However, regardless of whether they used grenades or rockets, Roy's pitch-black ice was not damaged at all. Just as they were at a loss, the pitch-black ice pillar emitted a cracking sound and began to crumble rapidly. This collapse was caused by the power of the dark fruit in the ice and Roy's departure from this world. All the solid ice rapidly shrank inward at the same time, then collapsed, shattered, and finally turned into dust. Even Caesar's frozen corpse turned into flying ash. Broom and the others watched this scene with their mouths agape, not knowing how to react. They did not even have time to take photos to leave evidence. When all the ice disappeared into dark particles and dispersed, there were no other traces left aside from the bare ground, causing the soldiers of the Allied operation team to look at each other and smile bitterly. That demon really did not intend to leave anything for humans. On the other hand, Broom, this consultant professor of the supernatural, sighed and wrote this in his notebook. He is Demon Osiris, the Lord of Darkness and Winter, a powerful and terrifying existence. Humans seem so weak and helpless before him. Although he had not done anything to humans this time, I still hope that in this world, there won't be foolish demon worshippers who try to summon him. Otherwise, the next time he comes, he might bring a calamity to this world. Many years later, Broom's words were written in his book, and this book was also regarded as a legend about Hitler's defeat in World War II. Chapter 93, Reward. After the mist of the Gate of the Abyss dissipated, Roy found himself back at his starting point in the abyss, but Demon Lord Rogeros had already disappeared. Due to this, Roy had no choice but to bring Fat Tiger back to the place of refinement where he had promoted and then contact the high-ranked demon Haradric to submit the mission. The place of refinement was still the same. From time to time, low-ranked demons would come and enter the pool to complete their promotion. As for those who failed to promote, once they left the barrier, they would immediately be hunted down by the middle-ranked demons loitering outside. Such a unique ecological cycle, who knew how many existed in the abyss? After arriving here, Roy poured his magic power into a demon gate according to the method that Haradric left. Soon, the demon gate was living again, and the aura of the high-ranked demon Haradric appeared. "It's you. Looks like you've completed the execution mission?" Although it had been a few months, Haradric recognized Roy at a glance. After all, frost demons were rare in the abyss, and Roy's execution mission had even alarmed Demon Lord Rogeros, so it was difficult for Haradric not to have a deep impression of him. Roy placed the damaged Peloton pillar, along with its base, and Caesar's frozen head in front of the demon gate. As for Caesar's soul, Roy had already kept it, so he naturally would not take it out. Is this the demon-human body that fellow created? Idra was Rogeros's servant and had naturally heard about this matter. However, he was quite curious as to how Roy had killed Caesar. In his impression, a demon-human body was usually quite difficult to deal with, so he asked about the details. Roy did not hide anything and told him everything. Idra was surprised. In order to track Caesar's whereabouts, you actually know how to cooperate with humans? Indeed, this was the most important part. The Belotan pillar had been damaged, and the memory crystal could no longer locate Caesar's position. If Roy had not found the allies to obtain information, it would have taken him a long time to find Caesar alone. This way, even if he could find him in the end, he might have had to face a demon-human Caesar who had recovered his magic power. A demon-human body with magic power and a demon-human body without magic power were completely different. What's wrong? Can't we do this? Roy asked. No problem. Idra said. Demons are always unscrupulous in their actions. Never mind cooperating with humans, there are even examples of working together with angels in history. I'm just surprised that you, a demon who is just promoted from low rank, could adapt to the situation of a different world. Idra said this for a reason. As demons were born powerful, they always had a sense of racial superiority when facing humans. They would treat the weak humans like ants and were unwilling to try to understand them. Such situations often appeared in demons who had yet to experience much in different worlds. They had to experience many different worlds before they understood that humans had their own strengths. Moreover, when trying to understand humans, they would discover that their personalities were complex and varied. If they could make good use of their complex personalities, their actions would often be simple and smooth. For example, when demons tried to conquer a world, they would usually encounter resistance from the humans of this world. However, these humans also had conflicts and hatred between one another. If they could take advantage of these conflicts and hatred, they could even sow discord between them and cause them to fight. Such ways of doing things usually only appeared in those experienced demons. Roy was a newly promoted middle-rank demon, so it was obvious that he had not experienced too many other worlds. But as soon as he arrived in that world, he quickly figured out the situation of the humans in that world and made use of the hostility between humans to help him complete the execution mission. It was very impressive. It seems that I didn't see you wrongly back then. Idra said with satisfaction. Perhaps in the future, there will be a place for you in the world of high-rank demons. You flatter me, Your Excellency. Roy pretended to be humble and asked, I've completed the mission. May I know what my reward is? I'll give it to you. Idra was used to the straightforwardness of demons, so he used his magic power to teleport away the Belotan pillar and Caesar's head and quickly gave Roy his reward. 3 high-quality fallen souls emitting pitch-black light, a pitch-black metal block weighing more than 50 kilograms, and a burning black fire seed. What are these? Roy was not unfamiliar with fallen souls. In fact, he had already guessed some of his rewards earlier, and they definitely included souls. However, he did not expect that Rogeros would give him fallen souls. It seemed that the demon lord was indeed rich. 3 fallen souls were extremely rich rewards for ordinary demons. However, since Roy could use ordinary souls to transmute high-quality souls with the Haradric Cube, he did not care too much about the fallen souls. His attention was on the remaining 2 items. They're Abyss Demon Iron and a Hellfire Fire Seed. Idra said. These 2 things are from the lower levels of the Abyss. You middle-rank demons usually won't be able to come into contact with them. However, the incident with Caesar this time alarmed Lord Rogeros, so these 2 items can be considered additional rewards from the Lord. Really? Roy understood and asked, what are these 2 things for? Abyss Demon Iron is usually used to forge demon weapons. Said Idra. Looking at your bare hands, you probably haven't made your own weapon, right? Then you can use this Abyss Demon Iron to fuse with your soul fragment to make your weapon. 50 kilograms should be enough for you. Then, is this Hellfire Fire Seed used to forge the Abyss Demon Iron? Roy asked. Yes and no. Idra said. Abyss Demon Iron will indeed melt under the calcining of Hellfire, but the Fire Seed is for you to fuse with. What do you mean? Roy did not understand. You'll only be able to use Hellfire after the fusion. Do you think that tiny Fire Seed can melt so much Abyss Demon Iron? Said Idra. But the problem is, I'm a Frost Demon. Roy was a little confused. Can I fuse with Hellfire with different attributes? It's indeed impossible to fuse. Idra said slightly awkward. However, this is the reward that Lord Rogeros asked me to pass to you. I think he might have mixed things up. In short, the rewards given by the Lord can't be changed. If you can't fuse with it, you can let that servant Hellhound of yours use it. Perhaps the hellfire the Lord gave you was originally meant for your Hellhound. Roy looked at Fat Tiger and was a little confused. Fat Tiger did have a fire attribute head, so it could probably be used. Then, how do you fuse with this hellfire fire seed? Roy asked. It's very simple. Eat it. The fire seed of hellfire is a flame of life. Idra said. Generally speaking, demons who know how to control flames are compatible with hellfire. Is it dangerous? Roy asked. Rarely. Unless it's like you. Having exact opposite attributes is dangerous, Idra said. Roy felt a lot more at ease hearing this. In fact, hellfire fire seeds came from the volcanoes in the lower levels of the abyss. They were not rare, but low-rank and middle-rank demons could not obtain them because they could not reach the lower levels. Most demons could control the flames with magic power, so hellfire could basically fuse with them. This allowed Roy to discover the benefits of working for these high-level demons. Souls were secondary. These things that were unique to the lower levels were not things that he could obtain at the moment. The Abyss Demon Iron and Hellfire Fire Seed might be considered staple goods for high-level demons, but for Roy, they were relatively precious. After explaining, Idra left. After his power disappeared, Roy quickly put away the 3 fallen souls, the Abyss Demon Iron, and the Fire Seed. The smell exuded by the fallen souls had already attracted the attention of the nearby middle-rank demons. While Idra's power was still there, they did not dare to approach, but as soon as Idra left, these fellows began to stir. Looking at these middle-rank demons surrounding him, Roy called Fat Tiger and flew into the sky. The demons who could not fly could only remain on the ground and stare. However, in the sky, a bunch of winged demons stopped Roy, but Roy and Fat Tiger killed some of them to open a path and rushed out. After leaving the place of refinement, Roy returned to his original territory with Fat Tiger. However, because Roy had been away for some time, a middle-rank demon had occupied it. Roy had no choice but to fight this middle-rank demon, kill him, and regain his territory. Only then did Roy calm down and study the rewards. It had to be said that the rewards that Rajaros had given were quite generous. Most of the time, when middle-rank demons worked for high-level demons, they were unlikely to receive rewards like Roy's. Usually, they would only receive some souls. But this time, he had pursued Caesar across worlds, and it was Rajaros who had personally promised to add more rewards, which was why Roy obtained the 2 additional items. Roy picked up the Abyss Demon Iron. The weight of over 50 kilograms was already very light to him. He could see that this was an iron ingot that had been refined and not iron ore. This weight was indeed enough to create a weapon that was easy to use. However, is there anything special about this Abyss Demon Iron? Roy wondered. Chapter 94, Demon Sword. The appearance of this Abyss Demon Iron made Roy suddenly realize that the Abyss had minerals. It couldn't be helped. You could not say that Roy was slow, and you could not force someone who studied painting and design to think about what minerals there were when he saw soil and rocks. Now that he thought about it carefully, Roy had indeed encountered many demons with weapons. At that time, he only thought that they were weapons forged with their soul fragments, but he ignored the materials they used for forging. Looking at the surrounding mountains and the ground beneath him, Roy was certain that there were some minerals beneath these layers of soil, but they might not be like Abyss Demon Iron. It seemed that the gravity of the abyss would become stronger with every level downward. If Abyss Demon Iron was only produced in the lower levels of the abyss, it meant that the iron should be formed under high pressure. Roy tried to remove some of the iron ingot, but he found that it was impossible. The Abyss Demon Iron was exceptionally hard. This is indeed an excellent weapon material. Roy tried to input some magic power into the magic iron and found that the magic power was operating very smoothly, so he knew that weapons made with Abyss Demon Iron might not only be used as physical attack weapons but also as staves. In addition to the unobstructed transmission of magic power, it even had a slight amplification effect on magic power. Was this not the principle behind magic staves? After remembering what Idra had said, that Abyss Demon Iron could only be forged using hellfire, Roy took out the Hellfire Fire Seed. This small black flame did not have any heat at all when Roy held it in his hand and was only quietly burning. It was rather strange. This was probably why it was called a fire seed. Fat Tiger, come here. Roy waved at Fat Tiger. Due to attributes clashing, Roy was unable to fuse with this Hellfire Fire Seed. Of course, as long as he was willing to squander his souls, he could use the system to define a Hellfire ability for himself. However, It would probably consume a lot, so Roy planned to have Fat Tiger use it first. After he fused with the Hellfire, Roy would see what characteristics it had and whether it was powerful before deciding if he wanted to have the Hellfire ability. Similarly, Roy could actually modify Fat Tiger's attributes to complete the Hellfire creation. But with the Fire Seed, Roy naturally would not consume his souls. Fat Tiger came over obediently, and Roy fed the Fire Seed to his Fire attribute head. After swallowing the Fire Seed, he immediately trembled in pain. "What's going on?" Roy was shocked. A system notice appeared in his mind. "The life you created, Fat Tiger, is being transformed by external energy. The success rate of transformation is 97%. Do you want to continue?" Fortunately, with this hint, Roy immediately reacted. Fat Tiger's pain should have been caused by the nature of the Hellfire Fire Seed, not by an accident. Since the success rate of transformation was very high, Fat Tiger only needed to persevere. Roy could only comfort Fat Tiger while observing his changes nervously. After all, there was still a 3% chance of failure, right? However, for some reason, a sentence suddenly flashed in Roy's mind. "If the fusion fails, this will be a godly book." This was what he used to mock authors when he read novels in the past, but he unexpectedly remembered it now. Fortunately, this did not happen. After a while, Fat Tiger's pain gradually subsided, and at the same time, black flames started burning on his body. This black hellfire was completely different from the Fire Seed state. It had a fierce and overbearing high temperature, and even Roy could not help but distance himself from it subconsciously. After devouring the Fire Seed, the fire attribute in Fat Tiger's body had changed. The original bright orange flames were completely replaced by the black hellfire. Under Roy's command, Fat Tiger spat out a breath of fire at a distant rock. The rock melted not long after coming into contact with the black flame, and even though Fat Tiger stopped breathing, the black flame did not extinguish. It lasted until the rock completely turned into magma before truly extinguishing. Thus, Roy finally knew what the nature of the hellfire was. Its temperature was high, and it was difficult to extinguish. No wonder the legends said that hellfire was inextinguishable. Inextinguishable was definitely impossible, but it was certain that it would burn longer. Correspondingly, this kind of hellfire breath also consumed more magic power. Fat Tiger looked exhausted after spitting it out. It seemed that using this kind of high-level demon flame when your magic power was still low was not worth it, and it could only be used as an ultimate move. After letting Fat Tiger rest for a while to restore his magic power, Roy planned to get him to use Hellfire to help him melt the Abyss Demon Iron. He took this opportunity to consider what kind of weapon he should forge. Roy was used to fighting barehanded, using mostly his claws and tail. Roy had even planned to transform his claws into adamantium, but as he gradually learned how to use magic power, he started fighting more with magic power. Thus, this modification plan was put aside and did not seem that important. Now that he had Abyss Demon Iron in hand, forging a weapon became a way to combine physical attacks and magic power attacks. Generally speaking, weapons were easy to use, and some of the ones made by demons that Roy had seen were very rough. They were either hammers or axes. Of course, there were also demon scythes like the one the high-ranked demon Ziron had used, which looked quite cool. But it seemed that at a higher level, such as demon lords, almost all of them used demon swords. When Rogeros's incarnation had appeared, there was a huge demon sword hanging on his waist. Therefore, Roy decided to create a demon sword. Roy drew a mold in the system interface, which he would use to create a sword embryo. After Fat Tiger's magic power recovered, Roy got him to spit out hellfire to help him melt the Abyss Demon Iron. Then he poured the molten iron into the mold to create a sword embryo and then continuously polished and shaped it. However, Roy realized that he had underestimated the difficulty of forging an iron weapon. Those who had never learned to forge could not play with these things. The sword embryo he made with the mold had a lot of burrs, and the thickness was uneven. It was as rough as the ones that other demons created. Roy had no choice but to seek help from the system. Fortunately, although this sword had not been directly produced by the system, he could save it as a material image and then modify it. Thus, Roy found a new function of the system. This made Roy suddenly realize that he could define the performance of the sword after forging it, and it would not be limited to the properties of the Abyss Demon Iron. The excited Roy once again threw himself into the work of retouching. 3 days later, a sinister demon sword appeared. The pitch-black sword had a streamlined shape, narrowing from the sword blade to the sword tip. The sword hilt had a demon as the design. The demon's skull was biting the sword blade, and a pair of scarlet demon eyes were engraved into the skull. Curved demon horns formed the cross-shaped sword guard, the handle was bones layered one after another, and the sword pommel was also a pair of demon horns. The entire sword was engraved with demon characters that even Roy did not know what they meant. They were usually hidden in the sword, and only when he inputted magic power would the demon characters light up and emit a faint blue light. The entire sword appeared relatively large because it needed to match Roy's current height. It was about 1.5 meters tall. When Roy stood and held the sword, it happened to reach his chest. To define the demon sword, Roy did not hesitate to spend a lot of souls. Demon sword, unnamed. Material, Abyss Demon Iron. Weight. Attack power, 100. Magic power amplification, 1.5x. Bleeding, wounds inflicted by this sword will not heal normally. Strength absorption, enemies injured by this sword will have a portion of their strength absorbed to enhance the wielder. Acknowledgement, this sword is only usable by the demon whose true name is Bakrancha. Osiris. These were the attributes he could define for the time being. Roy had obtained the magic power amplification number after repeated experiments. The initial amplification of the Abyss Demon Iron was only around 1.2. But when Roy tried to increase the magic power amplification, he found that every increase of 0.1 was extremely difficult, and the number of souls consumed increased exponentially. The 1.5 increase was almost the limit. Roy did not forcibly specify the two attribute definitions of bleeding and strength absorption and instead handed them over to the system to adapt. As for the acknowledgement attribute, Roy did not want to separate out his soul fragment, so he simply replaced it with this attribute. Furthermore, whether a sword was strong or not also involved a problem. That was its attack power. When Roy wanted to add the attack power attribute to the demon sword, the system informed him that there was no reference object. The so-called reference object was something that Roy had to find, such as a knife. After he defined the knife's attack power as 1 and saved it as a material, any attack power that Roy set in the future would use the knife for reference and comparison. The attributes for the small knife's material toughness, sharpness, and so on were 1, so an attack power of 10 was 10 times the strength of this knife. This meant that the higher the number, the harder it was to reach, and the more souls it consumed. Roy's forging of this demon sword consumed a terrifying amount of souls. He used more than 1,400 souls, and most of them were on setting the attack power. After setting it to 100, Roy realized that the consumption was too horrifying to continue increasing it, so he decided to leave it like this temporarily. Even so, the effect was still very shocking. The demon sword had a very powerful destructive force. He could not find any good experimental material in the abyss, but the sword could split apart even a huge rock, and the cut was extremely smooth. When Roy held the sword and input his magic power, the entire sword would emit an intense cold aura, and under the magic power amplification, Roy's cold aura became even more powerful. "Okay, I'll call you Frostmourne," Roy said. In fact, he created this sword based on Frostmourne's design. "I hope that one day, you can really become a divine artifact." Chapter 95, Demon Gold. As his strength rose, the number of souls Roy obtained gradually increased, but at the same time, the consumption also increased. After spending more than 1,400 souls to create his own demon weapon, Roy only had less than 800 remaining souls. Among them, 600 were the high-grade souls that he had obtained from Caesar. Roy used all of these souls to create magic energy growth potions. Thanks to the magic energy growth potions, Roy's magic power rose much faster than other demons. After turning the 600 souls into magic energy growth potions, he gained a total of 712 points of magic power. From the looks of it, these high-grade souls were best used to make magic energy growth potions. After his magic power increased to over 1,300, Roy successfully reached the level of a middle rank demon. Once he doubled his magic power, he would reach the top middle rank. At that, he would have to advance to high rank demon. However, he would not encounter something as good as the Caesar event every time, so Roy estimated that it would take quite some time for his magic power to double. As his magic power soared, the magic power nodes in Roy's body increased again, almost covering his entire body. The circulation of his magic power became smoother, and he could release the frost power of dark cold from any part of his body. Even if Roy did not deliberately use his magic power now, he would exhale cold white mist. Even places he lived often had a layer of white frost on them. Many moss plants had also withered because of the cold aura that Roy released in his daily life. Roy was a little confused. He thought that his magic power had grown too quickly, and he could not adapt to this power, causing it to spread out unconsciously. However, Roy was wrong. Everyone's impression of the abyss of hell was that it was all magma and fire, and it was not without reason. That was because it was really difficult to create a cold environment in this world. Among all the elemental demons, frost demons had always been the rarest. As such, most frost demons would think of ways to create a suitable living environment for themselves. Roy's cold ore leaking out was because his body instinctively wanted to transform the surrounding environment. As long as Roy stayed in a place for a long time, the magma and flames in this place would fade away over time, and all plants that liked hot environments would die, creating a withering wintry environment. During this transformation, the frost power of the frost demon would also become increasingly stronger as it continuously resisted the high temperatures. This was why frost demons were the nemesis of most demons. It was precisely because it was difficult for frost demons to survive in the abyss, which was suitable for using flames, that they trained their frost power to ultra-low temperatures. When Roy finally realized this, he allowed the cold ore to disperse freely. He also specially created a thermometer through the system to measure the temperature of his frost power. He discovered that the lowest temperature of frost power he currently controlled reached about -70 degrees Celsius, which was almost the temperature of Earth's south pole. This low temperature was only the temperature when he released magic power slowly. Once he unleashed his full power, the temperature would be even lower. Roy began to look forward to whether or not he could achieve a low temperature like absolute zero in the future. Perhaps it was not possible because absolute zero was the theoretical limit of temperature. The frost demon bloodline might not reach this level, but it did not matter. He could perhaps define and create it through the system. Although Roy guessed that the number of souls consumed to define absolute zero would be absolutely terrifying, this was still a thought, wasn't it? One of the benefits of Roy's transformation of his living environment was that very few demons were willing to go near his residence. Because the temperature here was abnormal, demons who liked heat would subconsciously avoid it, and Roy had stopped many enemies who coveted his territory. In other words, in the future, only he would be the one to break open the doors of other demons, and no other demons would break open his doors. Fortunately, Roy's cold ore did not lower the temperature of the environment of his residence without restriction. Otherwise, Fat Tiger would have been in trouble. Although he had an ice attribute head and could withstand the cold, the other two heads were fire or poison, so Fat Tiger was always sleepy when he was beside Roy. Roy had no choice but to let Fat Tiger go out and play by himself. After fusing with Hellfire, ordinary middle-rank demons were no match for him. Days passed. Other than hunting souls, Roy usually stayed in his residence to design plans. Among the rewards a Drow had given, there were 3 fallen souls. Roy used these 3 souls to complete a dynamic skill design. Considering that he did not have long-range attacks, Roy naturally designed a long-range skill. Roy named this skill Icebound Strike, and it was released using the help of his demon weapon, Frostmourne. While waving Frostmourne, Roy injected magic power into it and used the process of swinging his sword to release a crescent-shaped frost beam. The frost beam flew very quickly, and once it hit the target, it would immediately freeze the target. Depending on the amount of magic power infused into the skill, the flying distance could also change. But generally speaking, 50 points of magic power could let it fly about 300 meters away, which made it a low-consumption practical skill. In addition to this skill, Roy also redesigned his demon wings. He added some patterns of demon text and symbols on his demon wings, and these patterns were meant to carry the halo of fear. Roy had found the fear effect of the Eye of Nightmares really useful, so he planned to expand the range of this fear effect. When the demon symbols on the demon wings lit up, it meant that he had activated the halo of fear. After completing these 2 design plans, Roy's souls were completely exhausted. However, a month had passed, and Roy's cooling down period was almost over, so he could go back to another world again to obtain souls. However, before Roy could move, Fat Tiger returned from playing outside and brought back something strange. It was a black stone that looked like a lava rock formed after magma cooled. When Roy picked up the stone, he found that there was a shiny gold ore inside the cracked stone. "This is gold?" Roy was a little surprised. He swiped his claws, peeled off the outer layer, and discovered that it was really a piece of gold. The shape of the gold was very irregular. It had a lot of rough edges and looked like a naturally formed gold nugget. But the strange thing was that this piece of gold not only had a shiny golden color in Roy's eyes but also had faint black gas mixed in it. However, Roy did not discover any special magic power in the gold. Strange. What is this black gas? Roy was confused and asked Fat Tiger, "Where did you find this thing?" Fat Tiger barked at Roy, turned around, and ran. Roy followed behind as Fat Tiger led him a long distance. They left his territory and finally arrived at a strange mountain range. This mountain range was full of protruding sharp black rocks, as though the spurs of the mountains were sticking out. Fat Tiger led Roy through these sharp rocks until they reached a cave entrance halfway up a mountain. The entrance was not big. Fat Tiger easily drilled into it, but Roy had to retract his wings and shrink his body. After entering the tunnel, he walked for a distance and found a golden light in front of him. When he reached the exit, Roy was stunned. It was an extremely large empty chamber inside the mountain. What was visible were the sharp rocks that covered the top and the ground of the chamber. But among these rocks, there were a lot dotted with golden light. Gold. All gold. It was actually a gold mine. All of the gold here was basically in the form of gold nuggets. They were wrapped in thick or thin rock layers, and the gold that was inadvertently revealed had already dyed the cave golden. It was apparent just how many there were. To demons, gold was worthless because demons did not use gold as currency at all, so even if there was a gold mine here, no demons would come. Therefore, the gold mine could be considered well preserved. Roy was naturally dazzled when he saw so much gold. Damn it! If I had discovered such a gold mine in my previous life, wouldn't that have been great? Roy could not care about anything else. He quickly asked Fat Tiger to help him dig out the gold ore. One dog and one demon worked for more than an hour and dug out about a ton of gold ore. In order to get this gold ore out, Roy had to widen the cave entrance they came in. Finally, he used the system to create a large woven bag to carry the gold ore out. After returning to his residence, Roy had Fat Tiger carefully spit out hellfire to smelt the gold ore. In the end, he got a few large pieces of irregularly shaped gold ingots that weighed more than a total of 500 kilograms. However, what confused Roy was that after putting these gold ingots together, the black gas that he saw emitting from gold became even more intense. What's going on? Why does all the gold have this black gas? Roy was puzzled. This black gas shouldn't be something ominous, right? Roy did not know that the gold he had dug had a specific name in the abyss. Demon gold. If this demon gold were taken to other worlds, the people of the other worlds would not be able to see the black gas. Only demons could see it. This black gas was actually a special power. Demons were unaffected, but once the people of other worlds obtained this demon gold, something would be continuously sucked away from them by the black gas. Luck. Demon gold, also known as the gold of misfortune. Chapter 96, The Soul Falling into the Abyss of Hell. Although Roy was still unclear about what the black gas in the gold was for now, he did not stop there. He made a few more trips to the mine and mined a large amount of gold ore. He then smelted, purified, and cast it into gold bars. After working for more than a week, Roy finally smelted a total of 1.2 tons of gold bars. One gold bar weighed around 100 grams, and 1.2 tons was more than 10,000 gold bars. Roy was dazzled by the tens of thousands of gold bars stacked together. There was still a lot of gold ore in the mine. Roy had not even mined 1% of it. That was to say, if necessary, he could continue to go there to obtain gold. Although gold bars were useless to Roy, don't forget that most of the worlds that demons went to were human worlds, and in human worlds, money was everything. It could bring happiness to people, and it could also bring corruption to people. A mature demon had to know how to use the power of money. Demons were already very powerful creatures, and demons who knew how to make use of money were even stronger. Like his weapon Frostmourne, Roy stored these gold bars into the system's space. When he needed them, he could take them out at any time. After he was done, Roy left his residence with Fat Tiger and headed for the nearest altar. Even though it said nearest, it was actually more than 200 kilometers away. The middle abyss was vast and boundless, but the number of demons living on this level was much fewer than the upper abyss, so there were fewer altars here. When Roy rushed to the altar, the gate of the abyss coincidentally opened. This seemed to be another war summoning. When the gate of the abyss opened, it was exceptionally stable and lasted for a very long time. This showed that the summoner who opened the gate of the abyss had extremely powerful magic power. With such a stable and long-lasting gate of the abyss, the middle-rank demons gathered near the altar entered one after another. Moreover, there were demons that were continuously rushing over because they could smell the rich scent of blood coming from the other end of the gate of the abyss. But Roy did not move. After being in the Heroes of Might and Magic world, he had already come to understand that it would definitely be a high-rank demon, or possibly even a demon lord, that was summoning such a large number of demons to participate in a war. Although Roy had already promoted to middle-rank demon, and his status had improved compared to the time when he was a low-rank demon, the status issue was secondary. The real problem was the opponents he would have to face. Those who could accommodate demons on a large scale were usually in high magic worlds. This was because only in high magic worlds could demons stay for a long period of time, thus establishing strongholds and summoning an endless number of troops to wage war. Although there were many opportunities to harvest a large number of souls during wars, it was also the most dangerous. Even a high-ranked demon like Ziron had been killed and expelled under the Siege of the Dragons. Middle-ranked demons were certainly not much better. Roy felt that even if he wanted to go to such a high magic plane, he would have to wait until he reached the high-ranked demon level before going. First, he would have enough strength to protect himself, and second, he could guarantee his own interests. Therefore, Roy waited quietly as he watched the middle-ranked demons driven by their bloodthirsty nature disappear one by one into the Gate of the Abyss. Not long later, the nearby middle-ranked demons cleared out, and it became much quieter. This was also good. Roy continued to wait near the altar, and no demons came to disturb him, but he did not know how long it would take for the next Gate of the Abyss to open. Just as Roy was thinking about this, Fat Tiger suddenly pricked up his ears, waking up from his sleep state. Roy noticed his actions and felt strange. He knew that Fat Tiger's hearing was sharp, so he might have heard something. Woo! Facing the direction of the altar, Fat Tiger let out a low growl, reminding Roy. Roy realized that the sound Fat Tiger heard might have come from the altar, so he held his breath and listened carefully. Sure enough, Roy heard a faint voice coming from the altar when he carefully examined it. Strange. Why is there a voice? Roy jumped onto the altar in confusion. After arriving on the altar, the voice grew louder, but it was still difficult to hear clearly. My soul. Curse. Revenge. Hell. Roy could not hear these intermittent words clearly, but he felt that it seemed to be someone. Someone in a certain world who had a bitter experience. Due to the hatred in his heart, he did not hesitate to use the power of demons to take revenge. He might have made a vicious oath that involved hell, demons, and so, which was why it spread to the Abyss and Roy heard it. Although he knew that humans would sometimes take the initiative to sell their souls in exchange for the help of demons, this was the first time Roy encountered such a thing. The problem now was that the person who made the oath did not seem to be someone with magic power. His voice could reach the Abyss because of the oath, but because he had no magic power, he could not open a Gate of the Abyss to summon demons. Roy was a little speechless. What to do now? If you can't open a Gate of the Abyss, a demon won't be able to help you. You're hopeless. Just wait for death. It was unknown if it was because of what Roy said, but the voice suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a pitch-black soul that appeared from the altar. Roy was stunned when he saw this soul. What's going on? Instinctively, Roy walked closer to the center of the magic formation and sized up the fallen soul. He did not rashly touch this soul. Logically speaking, such a fallen soul that suddenly appeared in the Abyss was like picking up something for nothing, but for some reason, a sentence suddenly flashed in Roy's mind. The soul has fallen to hell. There really was such a situation. Roy had always thought that the so-called souls ascending to heaven and falling to hell was basically nonsense and just religious propaganda. He had harvested thousands of souls to this day, and he knew that after souls were exposed, they would gradually dissipate over time. He had never seen a soul ascend to heaven. The only thing he had seen that ascended was Gabriel's soul fragment. However, the Archangel had taken the initiative to retrieve it, so it did not have any reference value. Now that such a fallen soul had entered the Abyss, it has refreshed Roy's understanding of souls. Roy calmed down and felt what was different about this soul. When Roy listened carefully, he immediately discovered the difference between this soul and the fallen souls he had previously obtained. There was a constant echoing voice in this soul. Revenge. 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 This voice was like a murmur that kept repeating non-stop. Most of the time, fallen souls were caused by greed and desires in human nature. However, this fallen soul seemed to be due to intense hatred. And this hatred seemed to have become an obsession that lingered in this soul. Roy finally understood a bit about why this soul appeared in the Abyss. This fallen soul of hatred was the offering of the summoner. This summoner did not have the magic power to open a Gate of the Abyss, but his soul could fall into the abyss of hell on its own accord. His goal was to seek the help of demons. Generally speaking, even if humans were in a predicament, they would only place their hopes on gods and the like, praying for the help of gods and not demons. But the owner of this soul was clearly in despair. He might have sought help from gods and angels, but the gods and angels did not respond to him at all. Now, Roy had two choices. One was to let go of this fallen soul and not accept this offering. This way, this soul would remain on the altar and see if other demons would come to take it until it dissipated. The other choice was to accept this soul. Once he accepted this soul, it meant accepting the offering and establishing the contract. Roy might have to go to the world where the soul was to help him complete his revenge. This was the privilege of a soul that offered itself. After thinking about it for a while, Roy decided to accept this offering. In any case, he was planning on going to another world to obtain souls, so he might as well go to the world where the soul resided. Roy reached out and grabbed the soul. The next moment, a demon contract appeared in front of Roy. In the flames, the contract displayed its contents and the name of the soul's owner. The owner of the soul was named Cassandra. Yes, from the name, it was obvious that she was a woman. In the contract, her request was to kill all those who had persecuted and murdered her. Roy read the contents of the contract carefully and found that there was nothing wrong with it. He then reached out and pressed his hand on the contract, revealing his true demon name. Signing his name meant establishing the contract. The moment the contract was established, Roy felt a suction coming from beneath his feet. It was the magic formation beneath his feet that was absorbing his magic power. Seeming to sense the establishment of the demon contract, the magic formation on the altar used Cassandra's soul to locate her world and then used Roy's magic power to activate the magic formation. A gate of the abyss opened, and Roy entered with Fat Tiger. However, when the mist of the abyss disappeared, Roy fell into the sea. The place he appeared did not seem to be right. It was actually in the middle of the sea. And the worst of all, it was in stormy weather, lightning, thunder, and monstrous waves. There was also the corpse of a young girl floating in the waves. Chapter 97, Roy's Demon Blood. Without a doubt, this girl floating in the waves was the owner of the offered soul. Roy was not surprised that this girl was a corpse. If the owner had not died, her soul could not have left her body. He was just a little depressed that he was teleported into the sea and encountered a storm. Sea storms were extremely terrifying. The power that stirred the heavens and earth was something that even demons would be terrified of. Looking at the bolts of lightning shuttling through the dense clouds and the violent wind and rain, Roy did not dare to fly, afraid of being struck by lightning. Therefore, Roy used his frost power to freeze the seawater to create a floating island that was hundreds of square meters. The only thing he was glad about was that he did not have the power of flames. If he had the power of flames, he would have been really at a loss in the sea. After Roy built the floating island, Fat Tiger carried the girl's corpse up. He swam faster than Roy in the big waves, so Roy had asked him to salvage the corpse. After Fat Tiger got on the floating island, Roy used his frost power to create an ice wall that enveloped the entire floating island. This way, the layer of ice would isolate the storm outside. Although the floating island did not have a foundation and would be tossed about in the stormy sea, it was better than being drenched. Only then did Roy have the time to examine the girl's corpse. This young girl looked like she was only in her teens. Her clothes were already tattered, and with her clothes not covering her body, Roy naturally saw the miserable scars on her body. At her ankles and wrists were very serious strangulation marks, indicating that she had been tied up and had been trying to break free. So much so that her wrists and ankles were riddled with wounds. He could see countless crisscrossing wounds on her limbs, chest, and back. Roy took a closer look and found that some of them were from being whipped, some were from being burned by fire, and some were from being cut by knives. These scars were old and new, and some were even new wounds that had split open on top of the old ones. However, these injuries were nothing. The most severe injuries were at her chest and eyes. Her right breast had been completely cut off. Even though her eyelids were closed, they were sunken in, and blood flowed out of the corners of her eyes. He could easily tell that her eyes had been gouged out. It was hard to imagine what kind of torture this girl had suffered when she was alive. Not to mention a teenage girl, even a demon like Roy felt that it was cruel. Such injuries could only be inflicted by her own kind. Although demons would also harm their own kind, it was basically killing them and taking away their souls. There were very few cases of torture, so for a while, Roy felt that humans were crueler to their own kind than demons. It was no wonder she felt so much hatred when she died. Looking at the young girl's corpse, Roy was a little worried. The demon contract required him to avenge Cassandra, but she was already dead and did not leave any information behind. How could Roy know who her enemies were and where they were? Although Cassandra's soul was now in Roy's hands, Roy had devoured souls before. He knew that although memories of the original owner existed in the soul, it was extremely rare. When demons swallowed souls, they could only see some discontinuous scenes, and it was difficult for them to leave an impression in the minds of demons. If not for this, the demons of the abyss had devoured so many souls, so they would have probably already become schizophrenic due to memory problems. There seemed to be a way to extract the memories from a soul, but it seemed to be a rather unique magic that Roy did not know currently. Do I have to create an impure world reincarnation skill on the spot? But I don't have many souls right now. After thinking about it, Roy realized that there was only one way left in this situation. It was his demon blood. Demon blood was very special because demon bloodlines were extremely powerful. Just like the demons themselves, it had a very strong and aggressive nature. Thus, once demon blood entered the bodies of other creatures, it would immediately corrode them and cause them to mutate. In a sense, demons could be regarded as the ancestors of many monsters. So far, Roy had seen monsters created by two types of demon blood. One was in the Van Helsing world, where an unknown demon used his demon blood to create the vampire Count Dracula. The second was the illusion demon Caesar using his own blood to create the Thule Society believers who could use illusions. In these two events where demon blood created monsters, the difference was that the state of the creature receiving the demon blood. Dracula drank demon blood when he was about to die, so he became an undead creature. Caesar's believers drank demon blood while they were alive, so they could be considered living monsters. Roy's current situation was different from these two. Cassandra was already dead, so Roy did not know what his demon blood would turn her into. Roy took out Frostmourne from the system space and wiped it gently against his left palm. Then he opened Cassandra's mouth with his right hand, held his left fist high, and let his blood drip into her mouth. However, during the process of dripping the demon blood, Roy discovered something strange. His demon blood seemed to have changed color. From the original purple-red, it became somewhat greenish. He did not know why. Is it because of the bloodline promotion? Roy did not understand, but now was not the time to think about this. His demon blood did not drip out much, and the wound on his hand quickly healed. Without any further thoughts, Roy began to observe the changes to Cassandra. The change happened so quickly that it caught Roy off guard. After the demon blood began to take effect, Cassandra's corpse quickly began to fester from the mouth. No, to be precise, it was not festering, but rotting. Her flesh and blood first turned black, then quickly turned into thick black liquid flowing down. This rotting began from the mouth and spread toward the head and neck at the same time. The corpse soon left behind only a skeleton, and the thick liquid made from flesh and blood turned into ice covering the ground. This change naturally shocked Roy, and he subconsciously took a few steps back. Seeing Cassandra turning into a skeleton wrapped in tattered clothing, Roy was speechless. Did I screw up? Is there something wrong with my demon blood? While Roy was thinking, a layer of black fog suddenly spread over Cassandra's corpse. With slight clicking sounds, Cassandra's finger bones on the ice suddenly moved. Roy immediately fixed his eyes on Cassandra's corpse. Then he realized that this was not an illusion. The dead Cassandra was actually moving at this moment. She supported herself on the ice with her hands and slowly straightened her upper body. No way. My demon blood can actually create undead? Or was it because I used demon blood on the corpse? Where is this? When Cassandra woke up, she seemed to still be in a daze, so she could not help saying this. However, her flesh and blood had already rotted, so it was impossible for her to talk without the support of vocal cords, but Roy still heard her voice. It was very strange. Roy looked carefully at Cassandra. He was sure that her body did not have a soul since her soul was still in his hands, so it could not be the language of souls. Is this the language of the undead? At this time, Cassandra finally recovered her senses. There was no light on this floating island, but there was a faint light in her hollow eye sockets that allowed her to see Roy. After seeing Roy, Cassandra was clearly startled and screamed. She tried her best to retreat, but when she placed her hand on the ground, she realized that there was something wrong with her. She did not sense anything. She subconsciously raised her hand and placed it before her eyes. Only then did she realize that her hand had turned into a skeleton's, making her even more panicked. What's wrong with me? Roy was not in a hurry when he saw that she had woken up. He stretched out his hand and made a large ice chair with his frost power. Then he sat down and reclined on the chair, with his tail resting on one of the arms. His right hand hung down from the other arm. He stroked Fat Tiger, who was lying on the ground, and said to Cassandra, "Do you really not remember anything?" After hearing Roy's words, countless images suddenly flashed in her mind, and her memories returned. I dreamed of my soul falling into a black space filled with flames. Cassandra muttered before looking up at Roy. That's right. Roy nodded. That's the abyss of hell. Your soul full of intense hatred fell into the abyss of hell and was obtained by me. Now, since I've accepted the offering, in return, I will fulfill your wish for revenge, so I brought you back to life. Unfortunately, your corpse had already turned cold, so it looks like you can only exist as an undead. Is that so? Cassandra looked at her body, which had turned into a skeleton, in disbelief. After a long silence, she suddenly stood up from the ground, seemingly thinking of something. Following that, a cold aura spread out from her body. As the cold aura erupted, Cassandra's skeleton body began to float in the air. With the cold aura spreading all over, the tattered clothes on her body started to flutter. Seeing this, even Roy was stunned. And no way. It's a lich? Chapter 98. Actually, the book is very high-end. Roy was truly shocked. He initially thought that Cassandra had only transformed into an ordinary undead due to his demon blood. However, when he saw Cassandra display a similar frost power as he had, he realized that things were not that simple. Although he could sense that Cassandra's magic power was still weak, it also had the power of darkness and frost. Isn't this a lich? Strange. Don't they say that undead creatures like liches are mages, shamans, warlocks, and so on, transformed through a dark ritual? Why can my demon blood achieve this effect? Roy's mind buzzed with ideas, and he could not help but think of various questions. Although the legends say this, it's impossible for the first lich of the undead world to have transformed through a ritual, right? At that time, the ritual might not have been invented yet, so how was the first lich born? Could it have been transformed by a frost demon? It had to be said that Roy's guess was very close to the truth. In fact, it was true. Even now, one of the essential items in the evil ritual to transform into a lich was frost demon blood. If you traced back to the origins of the undead world, undead were undead, and there were not so many strange classifications. But with the involvement of demons, undead creatures had more branches appear. Thus, the connection between undead and demons was much closer than imagined. However, what was fun was that although demon blood could create undead with special abilities, demons hated undead creatures. The reason was also very simple. It was because undead did not have souls, and demons hated all beings without souls. Now, Cassandra's situation was very special. Usually, a lich transformed through the ritual would place their soul in their phylactery. Once the phylactery was destroyed, the lich would die completely. However, Cassandra had offered her soul to Roy, and Roy was a frost demon. As a result, Cassandra eventually became a lich whose soul was in Roy's hands. This kind of situation was quite rare. After all, even if a frost demon could use their demon blood to create a lich, not every lich would offer their soul to the frost demon. Demons generally could not control these creatures that they created. This was because as long as the other party had free will, it was very difficult to truly enslave them. After understanding these relationships, Roy was naturally surprised, but he did not show it on his face. On the other hand, when Cassandra recalled her past and the pain she had suffered, intense hatred once again occupied her mind. Even though she knew that Roy was a demon, she was no longer afraid. She did not have any relevant knowledge and did not know what a lich was, but she believed that she had inherited Roy's demon bloodline, so she calmly called out to Roy, "Father." But this title stupefied Roy. How did he become a father? He quickly waved his hand and said, "Just call me Master." "Yes, Master." Cassandra was obedient, so she immediately changed her words. "My name is Osiris. A demon from the abyss." Roy said. "You drowned in the seawater, but your soul fell into the abyss because of your obsessive hatred, and I happened to obtain it. According to the rules of the abyss, I accepted your soul as an offering and signed a demon contract with you at the same time. Then I came to your world. Now, let's talk about your situation. What kind of cruel experiences gave you such strong hatred?" Hearing this question, the light in Cassandra's hollow eye sockets seemed to become brighter. She said in a voice full of intense hatred, "Yes, Master. I come from. Actually, I don't know where the remote village my home is. I was just an ordinary countryside girl. My father was a drunkard, a gambling addict, a villain. Dirty, sloppy, vicious. Every time he drank, he only knew how to vent his anger on Mom and me. He once used a wooden stick to break my hand and used boiling water to burn Mom, but both Mom and I endured it. But I didn't expect this situation to continue year after year. In the end, he became worse and worse. 3 years ago, after losing all his money gambling again, he even planned to sell Mom to his creditors, wanting her to use her body to pay his debts. That time, Mom couldn't take it anymore, so she resisted and cut my father with the only kitchen knife. My father escaped. I thought that Mom and I could finally escape this nightmare. But I didn't expect that 3 days later, my father limped back and brought people from the church with him. Later on, I found out that after my father escaped, he saw a notice from the church about reporting and arresting witches. Because he wanted the bounty, he actually accused Mom of being a witch and brought people from the church to capture her. That day, Mom cried and screamed desperately for justice, but the people from the church didn't give her a chance to explain at all and still took her away. Mom was burned alive on the cross that day, and my father. That night, he came back drunk from the tavern after spending the bounty of 10 shillings that he got from framing his wife. At this point, Cassandra looked up and said to Roy, "What a joke, right, master? My mom, who gave birth to me and raised me, was only worth 10 shillings. Roy did not speak, only quietly listening. After my drunk father came back, he beat me for no reason. After he got the sweet taste, he even mumbled when he fell asleep that he was planning to report me as a witch. I knew that he would definitely do this. The church would treat me as the bloodline left behind by a witch and also burn me to death. I was terrified, so I escaped that night." Cassandra clenched her teeth. "Now that I think about it, I still hate myself for being timid. I should have killed him while he was sleeping. After I escaped, I wandered aimlessly, begging and snatching food from the wild dogs. I wanted to leave the place I hated, so in the end, I snuck into a ship." Cassandra said. "I wanted to hide in a cabin and go with the ship to a place where no one knew me. But in the end, because I was too hungry, I was discovered by the people on the ship when I went to steal food. When I was discovered, they didn't do anything to me but instead gave me something to eat. I thought I had met good people," Cassandra said self-mockingly. "But later on, I found out that this ship was a slave ship, and there were many men and women at the bottom of that ship. They left me here to sell me off as a slave. When I overheard this situation, I wanted to escape, but I couldn't escape in the vast sea. Instead, I was discovered, so they revealed their ferocious faces. After beating me badly, they tied me up and threw me into the hold to watch over me. In my despair, I prayed to the gods like the other slaves in the hold, hoping that someone would come and rescue us. Even if it was those people I hate from the church who killed my mother, I still prayed to the Lord in desperation. But what's laughable is that the angel who would rescue us didn't appear, but a group of cruel pirates came. They plundered the slave ship, and the slaves in the hold became the targets for them to vent on. I still remember their wild laughter and the screams of those women. At that time, a pirate with a scarred face wanted to force me to comply. I was unwilling to be humiliated like this, so I resisted. In the struggle, I bit off one of his ears. In the end, this pirate angrily tied me up, dug out my eyes, cut off my right breast, and finally threw me out into the sea. When the seawater entered my mouth, I realized that I was dying. I don't understand what I did wrong to have such misfortune. I hate all the people who made me suffer, my father, those slave traders, and those pirates. I curse them. Since the proud gods disdained a lowly little girl like me, I swore that I would make them pay even if I had to use the power of demons." After Cassandra recounted her experience and vented her anger, there was a long period of silence. Only the floating island was shaking from the large sea waves, and the roar of thunder and lightning came, seemingly crying out against Cassandra's injustice. Roy remained silent for a long time. To be honest, even Roy was stunned by what had happened to Cassandra. Yes, she was just a little girl. What did she do wrong to have to receive the most unfortunate treatment in the world? Roy thought of himself. What do demons represent? Everyone said that demons were the representation of evil, the embodiment of slaughter and chaos, and the greatest evil. The enemy of God. But why was there always someone like Cassandra who was willing to fall into the abyss of hell and seek the help of demons? Because God was arrogant, he always liked to test the world. When he did not accept you and did not respond to your request, it was not his problem, but because you were not sincere. As for demons, they were much more direct. All of a sudden, Roy felt like he understood the meaning behind the existence of demons. He stood up, walked in front of Cassandra, and spread open his demon's wings. As he infused magic power into them, the strange demon symbols on his wings emitted a faint blue light. A powerful fear effect spread out, and even the undead creature, Cassandra, could sense it. Come with me, Cassandra. Roy extended his hand to Cassandra and said, "The significance of the existence of we abyss demons is that when people forget justice and fairness, we stand out to remind them and let them understand what true evil and fear are." Chapter 99, Something Huge. Do you still remember your enemies? Roy looked down at Cassandra. Although I need to avenge you in the demon contract, since you've transformed into a lich because of my blood, I think you should be very willing to kill those who persecuted you personally? Yes, Master. When Cassandra heard this, she clenched her skeleton hand and said in a tone without happiness, "I want to personally kill all the pirates on that pirate ship. I want to tie the church bishop who burned my mother to death on the cross and let him have a taste of being swallowed by flames. As for my nominal father, I won't let him die happy." Cassandra did not mention the slave ship because the pirates had killed all the people on the slave ship. Even if she wanted to get revenge on them, she no longer had the opportunity. As such, Roy understood the targets that Cassandra had requested vengeance on in the demon contract: her inhuman father, the church in her hometown that was as cold as a viper, and that group of cruel pirates. Of these three targets for revenge, the first two were relatively simple. After all, they would not be able to fly away on land. However, the pirates might be more troublesome, as they would be difficult to find because they traveled on the sea. Most importantly, Cassandra was not too sure what the pirate group was called because she had encountered the pirates when they plundered the slave ship and could not see what their pirate flag looked like. The only clue to this pirate group was the pirate whom she had bitten the ear off of. But it did not matter. They could always be found. Looking at Cassandra's tattered clothes wrapping around her skinny skeleton, Roy thought for a while before saying, "Wait, I'll get you some clothes. You really don't look like a lich." Cassandra did not object. She nodded and allowed Roy to make the arrangements. Roy opened a blank page in the system interface and began to draw. What he drew was the lich robe of Calthazot he had in his memory because this image was too classic. Roy felt that only this robe with the petal-like bottom could be considered a true lich's clothing. He did not spend too much time on the drawing, nor did he consume many of his souls when he exchanged for it because he did not make any special settings for the material of the robe. There were no enchantment effects such as magic power amplification, and it was just ordinary cloth, so he did not even use a soul to exchange for it. It had to be said that Cassandra looked much more decent after putting on the lich robe. The robe was dark blue, representing the power of darkness and frost. The petal-like skirt fluttered slightly as she floated. The towering shoulder pads and the wide collar standing upright behind her wrapped around her skull and chest, leaving only the ribs at the center of her abdomen exposed. In the hollow eye sockets, the flames of death that were full of hatred glowed. With Cassandra's current appearance, anyone who saw her would shudder in fear. The only pity was that this lich, Cassandra, was different from those mages and warlocks who had been transformed by the evil ritual. She did not have too much magic power because all her power was bestowed by Roy's of demon blood. Although she could use the power of darkness and frost, her magic power was at most at 100, which was not even 10% of Roy's. This little bit of magic power might be enough to deal with ordinary people, but based on Roy's perception of this world's repulsive force, this could be considered a middle magic world. Cassandra had mentioned that the church was killing witches, so Roy speculated that there might also be existences with extraordinary powers, and perhaps they were not weak. Therefore, Roy wondered if Cassandra could possibly evolve, so he took out a soul from the system space and handed it to her. "Try and see if you can absorb it." However, reality proved Roy wrong. Not all life forms could absorb souls to increase their magic power, at least not an undead creature like a lich. Cassandra no longer had a soul. Although she could see the soul in her undead state, she could not absorb it, so Roy could only regretfully put it away. However, just as Roy was feeling slightly regretful, Cassandra suddenly said, "Master, I can feel hunger." "Hunger?" Roy asked curiously. "What do you want to eat?" "I don't quite know." Cassandra was a little confused. "I just instinctively felt that you and the Hellhound have something that I desire." "Both me and Fat Tiger?" Roy swayed his tail while thinking for a while. He knew that Cassandra was definitely not referring to souls or magic power, so he suddenly thought of something and asked tentatively, "You mean life force?" The flames of death in Cassandra's eyes suddenly brightened when she heard this term, and she nodded. "Maybe." After hearing what she said, Roy felt that it was normal. That's right. If there was something that undead desired the most, it was life force. It should be known that life force was a special power that only existed in living creatures. Very good. Then, in the process of your revenge, the life force of your enemies will belong to you, and their souls will belong to me. Got it? Roy said. I follow your will, Master. Cassandra said respectfully. Just as Roy was about to let Cassandra rest and adapt to her body and magic power and wait for the storm to pass, a strange sound suddenly spread on the floating island. Knock. 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 It was as if something was beating on the ice wall enclosing them. Fat Tiger woke up immediately. He raised his head toward the direction of the sound and let out a threatening growl. On the sea outside, a bolt of lightning streaked across the night sky. Under the light of the lightning, Roy saw a blurry figure reflected on the ice wall. That's strange. There's actually someone in such stormy weather? Roy felt that it was very strange. He thought that it was a victim at sea that coincidentally bumped into this floating ice island he created, so he raised his hand and controlled the melting of the ice wall to reveal a hole. When the hole appeared, the wind and rain outside immediately blew in. However, the figure standing at the hole did not struggle to climb in like a victim. He walked in. In the darkness, Roy saw the figure clearly at a glance and then realized that it was a monster coming in. The monster had a humanoid body but a flat fish-like head. His body was full of all kinds of barnacles, starfish, and so on, looking as if he had favus. It was a disgusting sight. This fishman was holding a rusted chain in his hand. He dragged the chain on the ground, leaving water stains all over. After entering, he immediately shouted in a threatening tone, "Was it you who used black sorcery to take that soul away?" He did not seem to be able to see the situation inside clearly because of the light. After just seeing the two figures vaguely, he spoke directly. Roy's thoughts moved as he flashed and appeared in front of this fishman. He stretched out his demon claws, grabbed the fishman's head, and lifted him up. After twisting the fishman to face him, Roy grinned at him. "Were you shouting at me just now?" With a crash, another bolt of lightning flashed across the night sky, and the fishman finally saw Roy's face. He immediately trembled in fear. "Demon? How can it be a demon?" "Who are you?" Roy asked. "Who sent you? Why do you know that a soul disappeared? Answer me properly, or else don't blame me for my hand shaking and accidentally crushing your head." Don't. I'll tell you. I'll tell you." The fishman was terrified and did not dare to struggle, only hurriedly explaining, "It's Captain Davy Jones sent me here to take a look. Although he no longer ferries the souls of those who died at sea, he can sense them as long as the souls of those who died at sea appear. And not long ago, Captain Davy Jones sensed that a soul that should have been in the sea had mysteriously disappeared, so he sent me here to take a look." "Davy Jones? The Flying Dutchman?" Roy was surprised. "Yes, him." The fishman sighed in relief when he saw that this demon knew their captain's name. "It's actually the pirates of the Caribbean world?" But thinking about it, Roy did not feel that it was too strange. Witches, pirates, slave ships, these terms that Cassandra had mentioned earlier were something Roy should have thought of. However, Cassandra's revenge has not even begun yet, so why has Davy Jones come to me? "Is it true that Davy Jones can sense all the souls of those that perished at sea?" Roy asked the fishman. "Why, yes." The fishman nodded. "Then go back and tell Davy Jones that the disappeared soul is already mine. Tell him not to think about it anymore." With that said, Roy threw the fishman away. Roy knew that the so-called disappeared soul referred to Cassandra's soul. He reckoned that Davy Jones had not expected that her soul would fall into the abyss while in the sea. Although Roy knew that this was the pirates of the Caribbean world, he was very clear that he did not need to interact with the people in this world. Although Davy Jones had reached an agreement with Calypso, the goddess of the sea, to help her guide the souls of those who died at sea to the afterlife, from the looks of it, Davy Jones had stopped his work. And he and his subordinates had been cursed. Since he had already stopped his work, he could not manage Roy. This was why Roy had made this fishman bring back what he said. After being thrown out by Roy, the fishman ignored the pain, crawled out of the melted hole, and then rolled over into the sea. He regretted that he was sent to carry out this investigation mission. He had originally thought that it was some audacious fellow who risked offending Captain Davy Jones and used black sorcery to forcibly intercept the soul that should belong to Captain Davy Jones. However, when he found out that this audacious fellow was actually a demon, he was scared out of his wits. He had to hurry back and report this situation to Captain Davy Jones. A demon was summoned to the world. It was a huge event. Chapter 100, Cassandra's Battle. A pirate ship was sailing across the vast sea. Although the weather after a storm was the clearest, and the sea was calm and sparkling, the pirates on the ship had no time to enjoy this beautiful scenery. They were repairing the ship under the berating of their captain. There was nothing they could do about it. Their ship looked tattered at this moment. Stormy weather was extremely damaging to wooden ships, and the pirates were already lucky enough to survive the storm. If the ship were fine, then it would not be a pirate ship but a ship of the sea god. During the battle against the storm last night, the pirates had expended a lot of energy, and they were exhausted. But before they could rest for long, their captain urged them to repair their ship, so they were naturally unwilling. While they were hammering, they all saw the nails as their stingy captain while they gritted their teeth and cursed. The sunlight at sea was especially strong. Even in the morning, the pirates quickly became drenched in sweat, and strong odors were constantly emanating from their bodies. Most of these pirates sailing on the sea had not bathed for years. Not only did they not bathe, but they also rarely shaved their beards and trimmed their nails. As long as you looked at a man with a dirty beard on his face and long nails full of black rime underneath, there was no need to think too much to confirm that he was undoubtedly a sailor. While repairing the ship and scrubbing the deck, the pirates chatted. Although these conversations could easily turn into a brawl in the blink of an eye, no one would stop them. They would only cheer loudly and think of ways to join in, because to the pirates, this was a kind of liveliness to their boring life at sea. In this kind of boring life, many pirates tended to accumulate a large amount of energy that they had nowhere to vent. So whenever they had a battle, they would become exceptionally savage because only by robbing and killing could they release their energy. On the mast, this pirate ship's black pirate flag fluttered in the wind. This pirate crew did not have a famous name. It was only because their 13th captain was called Reed that the pirate crew was called the Reed Pirates. If the captain changed, the pirate crew's name would also change accordingly. On a real pirate ship, the frequency of the captain changing was quite fast. Because for pirates who did not know what loyalty and honor were, maybe one day after drinking a few mugs of rum, they might revolt and change the captain. On the crow's nest, a pirate was holding a spyglass and observing the situation on the surface of the sea. Being a pirate was also not stable, as they could be facing danger at any moment. Their opponents might be the Royal Navy or other pirates. Even in situations with a good field of vision, they could not let their guard down. Slowly turning the spyglass in another direction, the lookout's vision flashed past the front of the pirate ship. However, something seemed to catch his attention, so he quickly turned back and looked straight ahead. There was nothing in this direction just now, but why did a black dot suddenly appear? The lookout extended the spyglass in his hand as much as possible, trying to see what it was. Unfortunately, the spyglass's clarity was not good enough. However, as the ship continued onward, the lookout finally recognized what the black dot was. It was a figure. The lookout could not help but shiver because he found that the figure was standing on the surface of the sea. In the sea, there were too many bizarre things. The more curious a person was, the earlier they died. Thus, even though the lookout did not see clearly what the figure looked like and how they could stand on the surface of the sea, he still shouted at the pirates below, "Turn! Turn! Turn! No more forward!" The lookout wanted the pirate ship to deviate from the direction of the figure as far as possible. Although the pirates did not know what was going on, they still cooperated and turned the rudder. While the ship was turning, the pirates could not hold back their curiosity after knowing what was happening. They dropped their work and ran to the side of the ship, wanting to see what was going on when the ship passed by the figure. Not long after, the ship passed by the figure. When the pirates saw the figure's appearance, they could not help but gasp. It was a skeleton in a gorgeous robe. She was floating on the surface of the sea, and on the surface of the sea beneath her feet was a frozen piece of ice. Her hollow eye sockets swept past each and every pirate at the shipboard as the pirate ship passed. Every pirate who looked at her felt their blood run cold. God! What the hell is that? The pirates drew crosses on their foreheads. Those with protective charms took out their strange charms and held them firmly in their hands. Hurry, quickly leave this place. This sea area is very ominous. The pirates hurriedly acted in the midst of the chaos, lowering their sails and attempting to escape. However, at this moment, a pirate screamed at the top of his lungs, She's following us." The pirates swiftly turned back to look. The robed skeleton had left her original position and was chasing after the pirate ship. "Damn it! Quick! Go to the bottom of the ship, take out the oars, and row hard. We must get rid of her," the captain of the pirate ship shouted. However, before the pirates could run down the hold, their ship was already overtaken. The robed skeleton suddenly rushed up over the ship's side and landed on their deck. "Undead. She's a real undead." Looking at the moving skeleton, the pirates screamed, all their voices turning hoarse. Only Captain Reed remained calm. He roared, "Shut up! So what if she's an undead? Take out your crosses and find a way to force her back." Upon hearing this, the courage of the pirates was finally awakened. A one-eyed pirate held the cross he snatched from his companion with one hand and a cutlass with the other. He shouted, "I'm not afraid of you," to boost his courage, and then rushed toward the robed skeleton. However, when he slashed at the robed skeleton, the skeleton avoided him easily, and the next second, the skeleton's hands landed on the pirate. Crack! 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 Continuous sounds rang out. A layer of frost quickly spread on the pirate's body, and the sudden chill froze the pirate. While the pirate was unable to resist, the robed skeleton suddenly let him go and made an inhaling motion at the pirate. A faint green mist floated out of the frozen pirate's body as the skeleton inhaled and then absorbed it. As the faint mist continued to be sucked out, the frozen pirate actually aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. His originally firm muscles became shriveled, and his skin grew wrinkled. Within moments, his entire body became as thin as a stick. Finally, the frozen pirate fell. When he came into contact with the deck, his fragile body broke into pieces. "Really can increase magic power," Cassandra said after absorbing the life force of this pirate. The other pirates witnessing this scene felt a bone-chilling coldness spreading from the depths of their hearts. It was already very strange that the undead before them could move onto the sun. Yet in the blink of an eye, she had sucked a burly man into a dried corpse and could even speak. How fierce was this undead? "The crosses don't seem to work," one of the pirates cried out while trembling in fear. "Idiot! What's the use of just holding them?" Captain Reed said with a headache. "Use the crosses on her." After hearing his words, a pirate holding a cross immediately handed the cross to their captain. Then a bunch of them looked at him eagerly. The meaning was obvious. "Captain, come and try?" Captain Reed was so angry that he almost cursed out loud. Although he made the suggestion, he actually wanted his subordinates to go first. However, when Reed saw the looks of expectation in the pirate's eyes, he knew that if he retreated, his subordinates would probably cut him down. If even the captain could not take the lead, could you expect the pirates under you to fight bravely against the undead? Without a choice, Reed could only hold the cross and advance cautiously toward Cassandra. As he approached, he used the cross to point at Cassandra and said, "Filthy undead, this is the world of the living. In the name of the Lord, I command you to leave this ship immediately." The cross represented the church. In the sky above the ship, when Roy saw Reed brazenly point the cross at Cassandra, he had already sentenced this idiot to death. As expected, Cassandra was furious after hearing his words. This was because her mother had been burned to death by the church under the phrase "in the name of the Lord." Cold aura spread out from beneath Cassandra's feet, blowing her skirt up. Cassandra did not have much magic power and little combat experience. So at the beginning, she was following the method Roy had told her and planned to deal with these pirates one by one. However, Reed's actions angered her, so she no longer cared about anything else and immediately unleashed all her magic power. The cold aura swept through and instantly blew against everyone. The pirates were all shivering from the cold, and their barely remaining fighting spirit shattered. They did not want to end up the same as the burly man. While their captain, Reed, went forward and entangled Cassandra, the pirates jumped into the sea. Roy shook his head as he watched from above. Cassandra's magic power was low, so while the sudden burst seemed very fierce, in reality, it could not freeze a single one of the pirates and gave them a chance to escape. Chapter 101, Frozen Ghost Ship. His subordinates had all jumped into the sea and fled. Although Captain Reed was cursing at them for not being loyal, he could not escape with them. After being angered, Cassandra's full attention was on Reed. Reed looked for an opportunity as he held the cross. Using it like a dagger, he stabbed it into Cassandra's bones. Unfortunately, it was useless. The cross in his hand only had the shape. Many people simply did not understand that the reason why crosses could exorcise evil was not because of their appearance but because of the holy power contained in them. It was not like a cross made with just two pieces of wood could produce the power of holy light out of thin air. Only crosses blessed by holy power were effective. On this point, the church had fooled many people. Although many people might not encounter evil things in their entire lives, once they encountered one, this knowledge would only harm them. The cross stabbed into Cassandra's body, but it did not have the desired effect. Instead, Cassandra grabbed his hand, and the frost power spread and froze his entire arm. Reed was a ruthless man. Seeing the frost spreading to his body, he made a prompt decision. His left hand slashed at his arm and cut off the right hand so that he could leave Cassandra's control. In the midst of the agony, he subconsciously waved his cutlass and swept it at Cassandra. Surprisingly, it actually worked, and he broke a few of Cassandra's ribs. Although she did not feel any pain, she still subconsciously backed away. After realizing that physical attacks were effective, Reed became energetic. He gritted his teeth and stepped forward, wanting to chase after Cassandra. In the sky, Roy could no longer bear watching. Although Cassandra was a Lich, this was her first real battle. Roy wanted to train her, but he found that she had made a lot of mistakes. As an undead, what was there to be afraid of breaking a few bones? On the other hand, the pirate captain seemed to have rich combat experience. He actually seized the opportunity to counterattack, causing Cassandra to become flustered. She even subconsciously retracted her frost power. "Fat Tiger, go down and help her," Roy said to Fat Tiger, who was flying around him. Fat Tiger howled and dived toward the deck. Reed chased after Cassandra and realized that this undead was not as difficult to deal with as he imagined. As long as he could kill her here, his prestige on this ship would immediately soar. Furthermore, he would have more capital to boast, and when people mentioned him, they would mention his title of Undead Killer. Perhaps he could even use this opportunity to become an existence comparable to the 9 pirate lords. Just like how there were 5 of the 4 heavenly kings, there were 10 of the 9 great pirate lords. Was this not normal? Just as Reed was feeling happy, the pirate ship suddenly shook violently. With a bang, a huge object fell on the deck behind him, causing the entire ship to sink, as if it were about to be pressed into the sea. When Reed turned around to see what was going on, his entire body froze. Not because he was frozen by Cassandra's frost power, but because after seeing what had fallen behind him, all the cells in his body were sending strong danger signals to his brain. He did not dare to move, he really did not dare to move now. Because behind him, a huge Hellhound was staring at him. Fat Tiger did not do anything. His 3 heads only looked at Reed with a threatening gaze. The one who really dealt him the fatal blow was Cassandra, who had recovered from her shock. She seemed to feel slightly ashamed of having been forced into such a state by a pirate. If this continued, how would she be able to complete her revenge? Thus, Cassandra made a move. She spread her hands wide, and a strong burst of cold air erupted from beneath Reed's feet, freezing him in an instant. It seemed that after this battle, she had finally comprehended a little technique to using the power of frost. However, although Reed was frozen, because the ice was not that cold, he still had consciousness. He looked at the Hellhound in front of him through the ice while feeling his life force being sucked away by the skeleton behind him. As he was dying, he suddenly felt as though he understood something. The storm last night seemed to have opened the gate of hell. Reed died, and his unloyal subordinates could not escape too far because Roy made a move. Flying in the air, Roy grabbed the pirates from the sea one by one and threw them back onto the pirate ship for Cassandra to identify. Cassandra checked the ears of these pirates one by one but did not find one missing. Although one of the pirates' ears was damaged, it was from an earring being ripped off by an enemy in battle. Cassandra's enemy was not someone on this pirate ship. The pirates were terrified and trembling. Not only did the undead appear, but even a demon and a Hellhound appeared. The pirates even thought that their ship had barged into the Devil's Triangle last night due to the storm. Although they were not the targets of Cassandra's revenge, Roy did not let them off. It was the pirates of the Caribbean world, and there were basically no innocent pirates. Roy threw the pirates to Cassandra and allowed her to absorb their life force to strengthen her magic power. Since Roy planned to let Cassandra complete her revenge on her own, it was logical for him to strengthen her. Among all the pirates, Roy left only the youngest. After throwing the teenager into a lifeboat, Roy left him 3 days' worth of food and then said to him, "Kid, I'll let you go. But you have to help me convey a message." The young man was trembling all over, but he still nodded hastily at Roy's words, afraid that the demon would change his mind in the next second. "I'm looking for a pirate crew. I don't know its name, but one of the pirates is missing an ear." Roy pointed at Cassandra. "They killed a pitiful person before, and now the vengeful soul has returned to find them. Before finding these pirates, revenge will not stop. We will kill all the pirates we encounter." The young man nodded, indicating that he heard everything clearly before Roy let him go. The youth was rowing the boat, desperately trying to get away from the pirate ship. But before he could get far, he suddenly saw black ice spreading over the pirate ship. Soon, the entire ship was covered in a thick layer of solid ice. There were no living people on this ship, so Roy did not hesitate to use it. He used his magic power to freeze the entire ship, making the originally fragile ship abnormally sturdy. The next time he encountered pirates, he would not need to let Cassandra wait on the surface of the sea. Instead, he could directly use this ice ship to ram into their ship. Under the sunlight, the black ice looked ferocious. The cold black aura spread throughout the ship and enveloped it, adding an endless sense of mystery to the entire ship. Even the young man, who was leaving and looking from afar, felt his hair stand on end. He vowed in his heart that if he could escape this time, he would no longer be a pirate. This line of business was not at all romantic and adventurous as he had imagined. There was only extreme danger and fear. News at sea transmitted very slowly. More than a month had passed before rumors about the frozen ghost ship gradually spread among the pirates. Over the past month, this frozen ghost ship had attacked several pirate ships. And without exception, the locations of the attacks were left with only the wreckage of the ships and withered corpses floating on the sea. The pirates were alarmed and uneasy. Although there were countless legends at sea, the legend this time was not one with countless versions, where it was unclear whether it was true or false. This was because all the witnesses and survivors were saying the same thing. Inside the various taverns of Tortuga Port, everyone was discussing this matter. Do you know that the robed undead is a lich? She's a vengeful spirit that resurrected with the power of a demon. That demon is the most terrifying because the Hellhound and the Lich are his servants. If the Lich can't take revenge, the devil will not return to hell. The demon can fly, and on the sea, no one can avoid them. They can always find their targets. We're in trouble now. With this frozen ghost ship, our pirate ship doesn't dare to go out to sea. Ours too. We can only stay in the port. That's not safe either. Although they're at sea now, who says they can't go ashore? Damn it. What pirate crew was it? They caused such big trouble. If you know who they are, capture them and give them to the demon and Lich. Shut up. Which side are you on? Although those pirates did something wrong, they're humans like us. Do you want to give your fellow humans to the demon? Shit. You're just standing there and talking without doing anything. If you're so capable, why don't you get rid of that ghost ship? Aren't you still hiding in this port? Bah. Coward. How dare you scold me? Take my fist. In the taverns of Tortuga Port, it was normal for pirates to start arguing whenever they did not agree with each other, and the pirates who were arguing would soon also start fighting. In the midst of the chaos, someone suddenly barged into the tavern. Panting, he shouted, "Good news!" Instantly, everyone fighting stopped and looked at the intruder. The man hurriedly explained, "It's said that a pirate lord is planning to deal with this frozen ghost ship." Chapter 102, Refusing to Believe. The pirate's news was right. A pirate lord had taken action. Perhaps in Roy's view, he was only helping Cassandra complete her revenge, but in reality, in the eyes of the pirates, this matter had already risen to a legendary level. Demon, Hellhound, Lich. These creatures that only existed in the legends of religions appeared in real life and caused the pirates to be in a mess. But on the other hand, if someone could resolve this matter, would that not mean that they would gain great prestige? Just like the pirate Captain Reed, who thought that he could become the undead killer and had never suspected that humans were overestimating themselves and thinking wishfully. However, no one had expected that the first to step forward would be Amund, pirate lord of the Black Sea. As one of the infamous 9 pirate lords who roamed the 7 seas, Amund was not someone with low intelligence. Before the other pirate lords made a sound, he should not have jumped out in such a hurry. With his reputation, it seemed unnecessary for him to rely on defeating the frozen ghost ship to make a name for himself. But he became the first person to speak up about intending to get rid of the frozen ghost ship. In the beginning, when the pirates in Tortuga Port heard this news, they were a little skeptical. But then someone pointed out that this might have something to do with Amund's faith. Yes, the pirate lord of the Black Sea was religious. Demons and undead were creatures from the legends of the Abrahamic religions. Even the priests had not come out to eliminate evil, so what did it have to do with Amund? But there was no other way. Most of the time, there was no need for a reason for this kind of religious struggle. Amund thought that if he could eliminate the demon on the frozen ghost ship, would that not prove that he was truly the son of the Black Sea under the guidance of Allah? Would that not prove that Allah was greater than God? The pirates could roughly guess what Amund was thinking, so they were all waiting to see what would happen. Regarding the pirate lord of the Black Sea, pirates were also very afraid of him because the pirate lord and the son of the Black Sea was also an existence that knew how to use supernatural powers. It was said that in his pirate fleet, every ship had voodoo zombies on them. These voodoo zombies were also known as reanimated corpses, and Ammon controlled them to fight for him. They were monsters with immense strength that did not feel pain and were also difficult to kill. It was with the help of these reanimated corpses that Ammon could be said to be invincible. And Ammon himself knew how to use voodoo dolls, and he could use curses to kill his enemies. In the face of such a strange opponent, ordinary pirates were completely helpless, so they were extremely afraid of Ammon and did not dare to provoke him. But now, Ammon was representing the pirates, so even if they were afraid of Ammon, the pirates were not stingy with their praises for him. When they talked about this in the taverns, they all bootlicked him from afar. If Ammon really succeeded, his reputation would leap to the top of the 9 pirate lords. Roy did not know about this, but about 12 days later, Roy found a large fleet appearing around the frozen ghost ship. In the beginning, Roy thought that it was the Royal Navy or the Spanish Navy. After all, although the targets of Cassandra's revenge were pirates, because she and Roy were not humans, there was no guarantee that the Royal Navy and the Spanish Navy would not appear to uphold justice. In his impression, only these 2 countries had large fleets. However, Roy realized that he was wrong when he saw the black pirate flags hanging on the ships. Although the pirates called Roy and Cassandra's ship the Frozen Ghost Ship, it was not a real ghost ship after all, and it was impossible for it to truly appear and disappear. It was still traceable, so it was not surprising for the pirates to find it. Roy did not know much about the distribution of forces in the Pirates of the Caribbean world, so he could not recognize that it was the fleet of Black Sea pirate Lord Ammon. He only thought that the pirates were working together to resist him, but this did not hinder Roy's anger. Roy had attacked all the pirate ships he saw indiscriminately with Cassandra. His goal was naturally to make the pirates fear him and hand over the pirates who murdered Cassandra to appease Roy's anger. However, after seeing this pirate fleet, Roy realized that he had underestimated the courage of these pirates. In fact, thinking about it, it made sense. How much wealth did the Great Age of Discovery represent in this sea? In order to travel the sea safely, the pirates had even dared to seal the temperamental sea goddess, let alone a demon and a lich. Seems that their fear of me isn't deep enough. Roy looked at the pirate fleet surrounding him with a sinister smile. Boom. 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 Before the pirate fleet got close to the frozen ghost ship, the rain-like cannonballs flew over. The cannonballs that did not hit the target splashed high water pillars in the sea, and the cannonballs that hit the frozen ghost ship sent chunks of ice flying. Although the dark and solid ice condensed from Roy's frost magic could absorb the impact of the cannonballs, and it should have no problem protecting the ship, it would be too extravagant if he wasted his magic power on the ship. Thus, Roy allowed the pirates to blast the frozen ghost ship to smithereens and flew into the sky with Fat Tiger and Cassandra. Catch up from behind. I'll teach them a lesson first, Roy said to Cassandra before he flapped his wings and flew toward the pirate ships. Due to the distance, the pirates did not see Roy flying up. They only saw the frozen ghost ship turn into countless fragments under the bombardment of countless cannons and could not help but cheer loudly. But before they could celebrate, Roy swooped down from the sky. Boom! Roy landed on one of the ships in the fleet, shaking the entire ship twice, causing large cracks to appear on the deck. Under the shocked gazes of the pirates, Roy slowly stood up. He spread his arms and wings and let out a loud roar. Roar! With this loud roar, Roy's halo of fear fully activated. An invisible force field spread out and enveloped the entire pirate ship. The 200-plus pirates on the ship felt an uncontrollable strong sense of fear deep in their hearts. Their tense hands suddenly loosened, and they dropped the weapons in their hands, producing clanking sounds against the deck. Their legs seemed to lose all strength as they knelt on the ground weakly, and some of the timid pirates even wet their pants. Not only that, with the constant influence of the halo of fear, these pirates actually began to scream out loud after their fear reached its peak. They fled in panic on the deck while screaming in horror. Some of the pirates closer to the ship's side directly jumped into the sea, regardless of the winds and high waves. The people on the pirate ship had lost their will to fight in just a single exchange. The effect of the halo of fear was simply unsolvable for those with weak willpower. However, there were also some who were unaffected. They were the reanimated corpses that Ammon had arranged on the ship. These reanimated corpses were bloated and looked like fat people, but in fact, their obese bodies were only swollen. Each of these reanimated corpses had thick and smelly boils, and yellowish-green pus constantly oozed out from the boils. The reanimated corpses all had crooked mouths, grayish-white eyes, and looked like dead people. With heavy footsteps, they rushed at Roy with various weapons in their hands. In Roy's eyes, these reanimated corpses were all undead that had lost their souls. Although they were called reanimated corpses, they were more like rotten flesh that could walk under the control of a secret technique. How could Roy allow these ugly zombie creatures to approach him? Stretching out a claw, Roy clenched his fist at a reanimated corpse. With his powerful psychokinesis, he immediately controlled the reanimated corpse to float up and then flicked lightly. The reanimated corpse immediately smashed into the other reanimated corpses. There were a total of 6 reanimated corpses on this ship. There were not many of them, but they had rushed out at the same time. After being smashed by Roy, these reanimated corpses that were not agile rolled into a pile. There were still dozens of ships of various sizes in the fleet. Roy did not plan to waste time on these guys. While these reanimated corpses were rolling together, Roy took out Frostmourne from the system's space. Holding Frostmourne pointed down, Roy stabbed his sword into the cracked deck. The next second, there was a series of cracking sounds. The deck of the ship began to collapse under the powerful destructive force of Frostmourne, and countless cracks spread from the deck to the hold. The intense cold aura coming from the sword also froze the water vapor in the cracks to form ice. This way, when the cracks were full of ice, the entire ship would no longer be unable to hold on. With a loud bang, the entire ship exploded. The large ship shattered into tens of thousands of pieces in the blink of an eye, as if it had been hit by a bomb weighing thousands of kilograms. However, there was no fire in sight. There were only countless ice crystals reflecting sunlight in the fragments. What a cruel and tragic scene. After Roy destroyed the ship, the pirates fell into the water, while Roy flapped his wings in the air and turned to attack another ship. Chapter 103, An Unforgettable Greeting Gift. When Roy finished, Fat Tiger and Cassandra arrived. Cassandra could not fly, but she could float. After Fat Tiger placed her on a ship, he no longer bothered with her. He jumped onto another ship and started a fire. No one dared to approach a ferocious creature like Fat Tiger. The legends of various worlds were different. Some said that Hellhounds were the gatekeepers of the underworld, and some said that Hellhounds were evil dogs from hell. But no matter what kind of legend it was, Hellhounds were terrifying existences. The pirates had never come into contact with such a mythical creature before, but today, they finally witnessed one. Flames. Black flames. When Fat Tiger opened his mouth and spat out the blazing hell flames, no matter whether it was the ship or humans, none of them were spared. Hellfire did not release much heat, but perhaps it was because of this that the temperature of hellfire was extremely high. Any part of the pirates that touched the hellfire would be burnt to a crisp within a few seconds, and they would not even have time to jump into the water to extinguish the flames. Furthermore, even if they had time to jump into the sea, they would not be able to extinguish the black flames. This was because the burning of hellfire did not rely on oxygen but on the magic power of the caster. As long as the caster's magic power was not exhausted, hellfire would not extinguish, even in the water. Fat Tiger, the hellhound that was burning with black flames, wreaked havoc on the pirate ship and soon ignited the entire ship. Countless pirates wailed as they burned into ashes, and Fat Tiger preyed on their souls one by one. Compared to the situation where Roy and Fat Tiger had wiped out a ship the moment they attacked, the pirate ship that Cassandra boarded was considered lucky. After absorbing the life force of a lot of pirates, Cassandra's magic power had grown quite a bit, but she was still unable to destroy a ship so quickly. On the pirate ship, she constantly unleashed her frost magic power, turning the pirates rushing up into pitch-black crystal ice sculptures. These ice sculptures were truly lifelike because they retained the movements of the pirates. After turning all the pirates on the ship into ice sculptures, Cassandra then calmly reaped their life force and souls. One pirate ship after another broke apart, was burned by black flames, or turned into ice sculptures. At every moment, the screams of the Black Sea pirates rang out. Soon, more than half of the pirate fleet was destroyed. Hammond, son of the Black Sea, one of the 9 pirate lords, was currently on his flagship. Although other pirate ships protected the flagship, Hammond did not feel safe at all. When he saw how Roy fought through his spyglass, he realized that he had made a huge mistake. Demons were different from humans. He was not the kind of existence that could be defeated by cannons and human wave tactics. When he saw that Roy could fly, he knew that the pirates had lost their greatest advantage because Roy did not fight on the water at all. As for the reanimated corpses that he had placed on the ships, they had no effect at all. No matter how powerful reanimated corpses were, or how fearless of death they were, if they could not even come into contact with the enemy, how could they play their role? In the past, Ammon was most pleased with himself for having these reanimated corpses as subordinates. However, He now realized that the threat of the reanimated corpses was only useful against humans. To the demon, Hellhound, and Lich, they were nothing. "Captain, quickly think of a way." The pirates on the flagship were trembling as they watched. They knew that Roy would charge over to the flagship after destroying the pirate ships around them. "Don't panic." Ammon forced himself to remain calm and then carefully took out a voodoo doll from his chest pocket. This voodoo doll exuded a foul stench from head to toe, its face was sinister and eerie, and no one knew what material it was made of. After taking out the voodoo doll, Ammon dragged a pirate over from the side. He then cut the pirate's throat with his cutlass, causing blood to pour out from his neck and onto the voodoo doll. A strange scene happened. The voodoo doll quickly absorbed the red blood splashed onto it. Not enough. It's not enough to curse a demon. Ammon gritted his teeth as he dragged 2 more pirates over and killed them to pour blood onto the voodoo doll. After the voodoo doll turned completely red, Ammon carefully placed it on the ground and began to chant some incantations in an incomprehensible language. Originally, it was best to obtain certain parts of the target to be cursed, such as hair, nails, and so on. After burying these things into the body of the voodoo doll, they could increase and strengthen the power of the voodoo doll's curse. However, Ammon was not confident that he could obtain anything from Roy, so he could only cast the spell forcefully. Following Ammon's incantation, the voodoo doll, which was lying flat on the ground, slowly straightened its body, as if an invisible line was holding it and controlling it. When the pirates on the flagship saw this strange scene, they could not help but gulp and quietly take a few steps back. However, as the voodoo doll was standing up straight, its movements became slower and slower. When it was about to stand up completely, it seemed to encounter huge resistance. Sweat was oozing from Ammon's forehead. It was far more difficult to curse a demon out of thin air than he had imagined. Seeing that the voodoo doll was unable to stand up straight, Ammon made up his mind to bite down on his tongue and spray his blood onto the voodoo doll. With the blood of the caster, the voodoo doll finally stood up. Ammon looked as if he had just been scooped out of the water, and his body was covered in the stench of sweat. But he heaved a sigh of relief. Ammon reached out and grabbed the voodoo doll. Then he pulled out the dagger at his waist and stabbed it into the voodoo doll's arm. After that, Ammon looked at Roy nervously. Roy had just frozen a pirate ship into a large pitch-black ice block and was about to charge over to the next ship when he felt a sudden pain on his left arm. Looking down, Roy found a small wound on his left arm. It was about 2 centimeters long, and some blood was emerging from it. "Huh? When did my skin get scratched?" Roy initially thought that he had suffered some injuries during the chaotic battle, but he soon realized that something was wrong. Ammon would never have thought that despite succeeding in using the voodoo doll, the curse effect of the voodoo doll had weakened significantly after being applied to Roy. His dagger should have directly crippled one of Roy's arms, but it was only a scratch on Roy. Moreover, this wound healed in a few seconds under Roy's self-healing ability. Roy reacted at this moment. Was this wound that appeared out of nowhere from being cursed? Roy was speechless. Curse a demon? What is the caster thinking? Doesn't he know that demons are the origin of black magic? As a demon, he was born with a strong resistance to dark forces, and Ammon's voodoo doll was also a type of witchcraft born from black magic. To humans, it might be really terrifying, because once the curse succeeded, it would mean that their life and death would be under the control of the caster. But to demons, it was only a small problem. After being hit by the voodoo's curse, Roy quickly sensed the source of the curse and locked onto the flagship where Ammon was. Is the caster on that ship? Roy saw that the shape of Ammon's ship was different from other pirate ships and immediately realized that it was a flagship, so he planned to give the caster an unforgettable greeting gift. Although curse magic was strange, it was easy to break. You could just kill the caster or destroy the medium. Roy faced a pirate ship that was frozen by him on the sea, stretched out his hand, and slowly raised his hand. Under Roy's psychokinesis, the small sailboat shook violently, and the ice on it made loud cracking sounds. On his flagship, Ammon realized that his curse seemed to have little effect on Roy. He was in despair, knowing that his black magic did not have much effect on this demon. Seeing his pirate ships being continuously destroyed, he already had the intention of retreating. However, before he could give the order to retreat, he saw Roy doing something on a ship. What does he want to do? Ammon wondered. It's not enough. Strengthen it again. Roy strengthened his psychokinesis output. Veins were popping out on his arms. As the output of psychokinesis increased, the frozen sailboat finally broke free from the suction force of the seawater with a boom and floated up under Roy's control. Seeing this, Ammon gasped. He finally knew what Roy wanted to do. "Quick! Run! Run!" Ammon roared. The pirates on the flagship were also scared out of their wits. Under Ammon's roar, they desperately turned the rudder and opened the sails, wanting to turn around and flee. However, it was already too late. Roy swung the floating sailboat with all his might. It drew an arc in the air and smashed at Ammon's flagship. Although it was only a small wooden sailboat, it was quite heavy. This was the limit of Roy's current psychic analysis, so it was difficult to control the aim when he threw it. Even so, it was like a nightmare for the pirates on the flagship. When the huge shadow of the sailboat in the sky enveloped them, everyone's mind went blank. Boom! A terrible collision occurred. Ammon's flagship had only turned half its body when Roy's sailboat hit it. Under the immense impact, the flagship's bow raised high, and the pirates on the ship screamed as they flew up high. Then they were hit by countless fragments with huge kinetic force and turned into corpses in mid-air. Chapter 104, The Devil of the Seas Appears. This tragic scene was witnessed by all the surviving pirates, making them simultaneously have the thought of "Mama, I want to go home." Too powerful. How could humans be a match for the demon? Even Captain Ammon had failed. Perhaps only those priests and angels could kill the demon? The flagship, which had been smashed in half, began to sink slowly into the water. The pirates who had fallen into the water were desperately swimming away from the flagship because they knew that it would be too late for them to escape once the whirlpool of the sinking ship appeared. Roy flew above the flagship and searched for the caster who cursed him. He did not know if the person was dead, but he had to get the medium. Even though the curse was too weak to be of any use against him, it was not a pleasant feeling to be cursed by others. Most of these pirates were ordinary people, so as long as he could find the places with magic fluctuations, he would be able to find the caster or the medium. Roy carefully sensed the magic fluctuations, only to find that one of them was slowly sinking to the bottom of the sea. Roy guessed that it might be the medium used to cast the curse, so he plunged into the sea. At this moment, the pirate's flagship was still sinking. After Roy entered the sea, something could fall on his head at any time, but with the strength of his body, these things could not pose any threat. He chased after the location of the magic fluctuations and soon found the slowly sinking voodoo doll. This thing was quite strange. It had not floated on the seawater but sank instead. Roy grabbed it. "It's so ugly. What is it?" Roy was a little puzzled, but he still got out of the sea and flew back into the sky. Roy grabbed the voodoo doll and tore it into pieces. After the voodoo doll was out of the caster's control, he could safely destroy it without worry. However, Roy then thought of the caster. When he destroyed the other pirate ships, he remembered those zombie-like monsters. He felt that those zombie-like monsters were likely also controlled by the caster who cursed him. Roy did not intend to let this fellow who was like a black sorcerer go. Since he knew black magic, it meant that he also had magic fluctuations on him. Although Roy's sensing range for magic power was not large, these pirates had fallen into the water and would be unable to swim too far. Therefore, Roy flew above the sea and began searching. Ammon was lucky. He was on the deck at the bow earlier. Due to the urgent turn, Roy had not directly hit him when he smashed the sailboat down, and Ammon was thrown into the sea. But even so, he was still heavily injured. His entire right leg was broken, and his whole body was covered in wounds. At this moment, he was holding onto a piece of wood and floating on the sea while panting heavily. When he discovered that Roy was flying low above the sea, Ammon immediately realized that Roy was probably looking for him. The traces of black sorcery on him could not be concealed. Knowing that he would definitely suffer a fate worse than death if he fell into Roy's hands, Ammon could only find a way to escape. He imitated the other surviving pirates and desperately paddled away from the battlefield. However, he forgot one thing. As a captain, his clothes were much better than the other pirates, and Roy found Ammon shortly afterward. Not only did he see through his captain identity, but he also found traces of magic power on him. Roy could not be bothered to chase after Ammon when he saw that he was escaping. He opened his mouth and spat out an ice bomb at Ammon. Rather than calling it an ice bomb, it was better to call it frozen air that was only the size of a fist. It was spinning violently while flying very quickly, leaving a trail of white mist in the air as it flew toward Ammon. This was an improved version of Roy's frost breath. The principle was very simple. It was nothing more than compressing scattered frost aura before spitting it out. Well, indeed, it felt like spitting. Ho, pooey. When he turned his head to look at the incoming mass of frozen air, Ammon felt despair. He knew that he was doomed this time. He already regretted it. If he had known that the demon was so powerful, he would not have gone out into the limelight back then. Now that he had not succeeded in killing the demon, he would lose his life. However, just as Ammon's heart was like dying ashes, and Roy thought that he could kill this black magic caster, all of a sudden, there was an explosion on the surface of the sea. Waves were splashing as a huge tentacle broke out of the water and blocked between Roy's frozen air mass and Ammon. Pang! The frozen air mass exploded, and the strong frost aura contained in it released at once. The huge tentacle blocked Roy's frozen air mass, so it had to bear the cold aura that erupted from it. The black ice filling the air instantly covered the tentacle, and even the waves that it created turned into ice. However, the black ice did not last long on the tentacle before it burst apart. Although the tentacle did not look injured, the beast's roar that sounded slightly painful came from under the sea. Kraken? Ammon was stunned. He recognized the tentacle at first glance. He dared to swear that he had never been so happy to see the Kraken's tentacle. Davy Jones had come. As if to prove Ammon's words, the surface of the sea suddenly parted, and a ferocious-looking gigantic ship broke through the surface. Its speed was so fast that with a whoosh, it emerged from the water and stood before everyone. The hull covered in seaweed, algae, and barnacles, the ragged sails, and the horns on the bow that were full of sharp teeth all showed the identity of the ship. The Flying Dutchman, the legendary warship of the Devil of the Seas, Davy Jones. The surviving pirates looked at the battleship that had drilled out of the water with lifeless eyes. Normally, they might have been afraid of the appearance of the Flying Dutchman, but they no longer had the strength to fear anymore. A demon, Lich, and Hellhound had appeared, so it was not a big deal to have another Devil of the Seas. Only Ammon felt a strong sense of hope, and he certainly knew why Davy Jones was here. The Flying Dutchman's deck still had water flowing off of it, but a group of strange creatures was already standing on the deck. Leading them was the octopus-faced Davy Jones. He had a pipe in his mouth, and his small eyes were staring intently at Roy in the air. The tentacle-like beard on his chin kept wriggling. The moment Roy saw Davy Jones, he immediately recalled the fishman that he had chased away when he first entered this world. He was one of Davy Jones's subordinates. The fishman had come to find Cassandra's soul. After Roy chased him away, he was already prepared to be found by Davy Jones. However, he did not expect that Davy Jones never showed up in front of him during these 2 to 3 months. It was certainly impossible that the fishman had not conveyed his message. Roy was certain that Davy Jones was the first person to know of his existence. But for such a long time, Davy Jones acted as though he did not know anything. For a while, Roy thought that he did not want to get into a conflict with a demon like him, so he chose to turn a blind eye to Cassandra's soul. Of course, this was a good thing. Roy did not want to have anything unpleasant with Davy Jones when it was unnecessary. However, Roy now felt that he had guessed wrongly. Just as he was about to kill the caster, Davy Jones suddenly appeared. Moreover, he brought the Kraken. What did he want to do? Chapter 105, Strength Absorption. Davy Jones and Roy stared at each other for a while before he finally took out the pipe in his mouth. However, the moment he opened his mouth, his tone was very unfriendly. "Demon, I've been tolerating you for a long time," Dave Jones said. "How many souls do you want to take away from me?" Roy shook his tail in surprise. "That's strange. I thought you were no longer carrying out your duty to guide souls? Even if I'm not carrying out my duty, it doesn't mean that I can let you plunder souls." Davy Jones tapped the side of the ship with his crab-like left hand. "I won't look into the little girl's soul anymore, but you've kept killing more pirates and stealing their souls. If I allow you to go on like this, are you planning to kill everyone on this ocean?" "I've said that this is a part of the demon contract." Roy did not care so much. "It's easy for me to stop. Just hand over the pirate with the missing ear and his pirate crew." "But the pirates don't seem to plan on doing so." Davy Jones was actually quite speechless about this. Indeed, if the pirates could hand over the murderers, there would not be so much trouble. However, if the pirates were so obedient, would they still be called pirates? Even the terrifying Devil of the Seas could not control the thoughts of pirates nor what they wanted to do, but he had to put a stop to the expanding killing of Roy and Cassandra. It was not because Roy had snatched the souls of these dead pirates. In any case, Davy Jones was no longer guiding souls now, and he could not be bothered with where these souls went. But if the matter involved the pirate lords, Davy Jones had to manage it. He could not let Roy kill Ammon. The reason for this was naturally because of Calypso, the sea goddess. Back then, Davy Jones fell in love with Calypso and willingly accepted the position of the Flying Dutchman's captain to help Calypso guide the souls of those who died at sea so that he could have a date with her once every 10 years. However, he did not expect the sea goddess to be so temperamental. She stood Davy Jones up and did not go to the appointment. The heartbroken Davy Jones gave birth to hatred from love. He dug out his heart and buried it with the love letters he wrote to Calypso. But this was not enough. He told the 9 pirate lords about the method to seal Calypso and used them to seal Calypso so that she would become an ordinary woman. He thought that once she lost her power, Calypso would change her mind and be with him again. Unfortunately, this move did not seem to work on Calypso. Davy Jones failed to wait for Calypso to change her mind. Instead, the curse he suffered continued. Although he did not admit it, Davy Jones regretted it. He knew that if the seal on Calypso was not removed, or if she did not die, the curse on the Flying Dutchman would be unable to be undone. Back then, when they sealed Calypso, the 9 pirate lords held a sealing item in their hands, and only they knew what this item was. Emmond was also one of the pirate lords who had participated in the sealing ritual back then. If Roy killed Emmond, then this sealing item would never be found again. At that time, Calypso would be sealed forever, and the curse on the Flying Dutchman would also never be lifted. This was a serious matter. Of course, Davy Jones could not watch Emmond be killed, so he could only appear here and save Emmond's life. Emmond naturally knew why Davy Jones came, and he was extremely glad. He knew that as long as he still had the token, Davy Jones would do everything possible to protect him. "Since you don't want to back down, then I can only expel you." As expected, Davy Jones said this decisively to Roy after being silent for a bit. As his voice fell, the huge kraken under the sea also emerged. Its enormous tentacles broke out of the water again, and this time, several tentacles interweaved into a large net that swept toward Roy. Roy flapped his demon wings and dodged a direct attack from one of the tentacles as Frostmourne slashed at it. But to Roy's surprise, the destructive power of Frostmourne failed to cut off the tentacle. The kraken's tentacles were covered with a thick layer of dead coral and algae-shaped shells. These things made the kraken itch with unbearable pain, but at the same time, they provided a layer of defense for the kraken. In addition, the tentacles were already tough to begin with, so after Frostmourne cut down, the resistance it received was immense. Compared to that, Frostmourne's attack was not as effective as the frost power attack. The defensive layer formed by coral and algae could isolate physical attacks but not the transmission of temperature. After the kraken had stopped Roy's frozen air mass earlier, the kraken had suffered some injuries. The roar let out at that time proved this. In the air, Roy dodged the kraken's relentless attacks, but he did not put away Frostmourne. He certainly knew that Frostmourne's attack did not have much effect on the kraken, but what he wanted to do was not to cause injury to the kraken. Looking for another opportunity, Roy fiercely stabbed at a passing tentacle. This time, Frostmourne's tip finally pierced a little, and Roy could see some turbid liquid coming out from where it stabbed. At the same time, a faint light flashed from Frostmourne. A huge force transmitted from Frostmourne and then merged into Roy's body. This was strength absorption. Roy had especially set this attribute for Frostmourne so that he could use it when he encountered large creatures. This attribute was actually very useless when used against ordinary people. This was because the effect of strength absorption could only draw out about 10% of the attack target's strength, and it could not be stacked repeatedly. Ordinary people did not have much strength, so the 10% absorption could not increase Roy's strength by much, but it was different when used on large creatures. In the beginning, Roy's imaginary target was actually dragons. He knew that with his demon body, the growth of his strength could not be unlimited. Moreover, no matter how much it increased, it was impossible for it to grow to the same level as the strength of dragons. Therefore, in the future, using strength absorption and complementing it with bloodlust, he could balance the difference in his strength and that of dragons and slay them. But now, he did not see a dragon, but he saw a kraken with the same huge size and strength. Of course, Roy had to test. Roy felt the muscles in his body swell under the effect of strength absorption. Although it was only 10%, the strength transmitted from the kraken was already very shocking. It was clear what kind of terrifying strength it possessed. The strength he absorbed could not be maintained forever. There was a time limit, so Roy did not dare to delay. After putting away Frostmourne, he immediately used bloodlust on himself. With 2 strength buffs, Roy felt as though he could punch through the earth with one punch. He looked for an opportunity and suddenly closed his arms, hugging one of the kraken's tentacles. After grabbing the tentacle, He flew up into the sky and began to pull upward with all his might. With a thunderous noise, Roy gradually pulled out the kraken that was hiding under the surface of the sea. Even the kraken was taken aback and stunned for a moment. After the kraken realized what was going on, it quickly paddled with the tentacles it still had under the water to use the power of the water current against Roy's pull. Water could bring buoyancy to kraken, but it could also bring resistance to Roy. If Roy could not pull the kraken out of the water now, it would be difficult to try to get it out again. Roy could only give up regretfully when he realized that the kraken below was getting stronger and stronger. He had wanted to see how big the kraken was, but he did not expect that he would be unable to pull it out anymore after only pulling out half of it. It's a pity that the environment is limiting me. Otherwise, if I could bring it into the air, this guy wouldn't be so threatening, Roy thought as he suddenly flashed and appeared dozens of meters away. And the moment he flashed away, an extremely thin stream of water flew past his original position. It was an extremely dangerous water pressure knife that Davy Jones spat out. Chapter 106, Evenly Matched. In this Pirates of the Caribbean world, Davy Jones, the Devil of the Seas, was definitely the most notable representative of the supernatural powers of this world. Unlike Hammon's black witchcraft, which used voodoo dolls, Davy Jones could perform some truly destructive magic. These water pressure knives were actually just jets of water ejected using high pressure, and they had a very powerful cutting ability. Roy flew in midair and dodged several water pressure knives shot by Davy Jones. He also responded by firing frozen air bombs at Davy Jones, but they were all blocked by the kraken. Roy saw that this was not a solution. Davy Jones seemed to treat the kraken as his meat shield, and long-range attacks did not have much effect on him. Thus, Roy looked for a gap, dived toward the Flying Dutchman, and landed on the deck of the ghost ship with a thud. "I don't believe you'll let the kraken attack your ship." With this thought in mind, Roy stretched out his hand, summoned Frostmourne, and slashed at Davy Jones. There was a clang as Davy Jones pulled out his sword in an attempt to block Frostmourne. Unfortunately, the sword in his hand did not seem to be anything special. When it came into contact with Frostmourne, it broke into two. Frostmourne continued on, cutting into Davy Jones's chest and splitting him in half. However, Davy Jones did not die. He dropped his sword and placed his hand on Roy's wrist. With a splash, a huge water ball instantly appeared and enveloped Roy. After Davy Jones trapped Roy with a water prison spell, he could not help but smile smugly. His body, which was split into two by Roy, began to close up slowly. He wanted to appreciate Roy's struggle in the water prison, but he found that Roy did not panic at all. The power of frost gushed out and instantly turned the water ball that was trapping him into a spherical chunk of ice. Then he struggled hard, and the ice immediately shattered into fragments. "Damn it! I hate frost demons." Dave Jones looked disgusted. Had it been any other demon, it would have been extremely difficult to escape the water prison spell. But unfortunately, Roy was a frost demon. After breaking free, Roy flashed and appeared behind Davy Jones. Frostmourne stabbed into his back. "Ah!" Davy Jones screamed before suddenly stopping. With a smile on his face, he reached out his crab-like hand and tried to break Roy's sword. Unfortunately, his strength did not seem to be enough to break the blade made of abyss demon iron. Roy kicked him away and withdrew his sword. After Davy Jones got up, the wound pierced on his chest healed again. Seeing this, Roy felt a headache. He had injured Davy Jones twice, but he did not bleed at all. This way, the bleeding attribute of Frostmourne would not work on him. "It's useless." Davy Jones seemed to have guessed Roy's thoughts. He pointed at the deck under his feet and said, "I am the captain of the Flying Dutchman. As long as I am on this ship, I am invincible." "Is that so?" Roy looked at his feet. The next second, an intense cold aura emanated from him and began to spread to the entire ship. The Flying Dutchman started to freeze. Not only the ship, but even Davy Jones and his fishman subordinates were freezing. The hard black ice soon froze the Flying Dutchman into an ice prison, and the prisoners were the ice sculptures of Davy Jones and the others. After the freezing was complete, under Roy's control, the black ice quickly began to collapse inward. All the ice emitted cracking sounds as they were constantly compressing and breaking down. Roy flapped his wings and flew off the deck. The Flying Dutchman started to distort and shrink unceasingly. This strange scene made the surviving pirate's jaws drop. With a loud bang, the black ice turned into crystal powder, and the Flying Dutchman disappeared. Seeing this, Roy heaved a sigh of relief. Didn't Davy Jones say that as long as the Flying Dutchman existed, he would not die? Therefore, Roy even destroyed the ship together. However, just as Roy thought that he had successfully killed Davy Jones, a huge whirlpool appeared on the sea. This huge whirlpool appeared where the Flying Dutchman had just been. As the whirlpool spun, a large ship slowly floated up from the bottom of the whirlpool. Roy gasped. This large ship was undoubtedly the Flying Dutchman. It was reborn. Davy Jones was still standing on the Flying Dutchman's deck as he laughed at Roy. "Demon, you look surprised? This is the power of the sea goddess Calypso?" Roy probed. The moment he heard the name Calypso, Davy Jones's smile disappeared, but he still nodded and said, "That's right. I admit that you're very terrifying. This is the first time I've seen the Flying Dutchman being broken down, but it's useless. This is a ship blessed by Calypso. Even if it shatters, it will quickly be reborn." Roy's heart sank when he heard this. He realized that he had probably thought wrongly. Even if Calypso was sealed by 9 mortal pirate lords, it was likely that they had used underhanded means to complete the seal. If people felt that Calypso was very weak because of this, then it would be a huge mistake. Roy did not know if Calypso was a real god, but whether she was or not, with the undying characteristic displayed by the Flying Dutchman, he could imagine how powerful she was. Of course, Roy's current opponent was Davy Jones, not the Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman was a divine artifact created by Calypso, but the captain of the Flying Dutchman was not. The captain could be replaced, which meant that he could be killed. The main point was Davy Jones's heart. All of Davy Jones's strength came from the Flying Dutchman, and this seemed to be something similar to a demon contract. To become the captain of the Flying Dutchman, he had to offer his heart to sign a contract with this ship. But the tricky part was that after killing the Flying Dutchman captain, it was equivalent to taking over the other party's duties and becoming the new Flying Dutchman captain. After recalling these things, Roy finally realized that he could not kill Davy Jones unless he could find his heart. Even if he did find it, he could not kill Davy Jones because he did not want to become the new captain of this ghost ship. After some thought, Roy decided to retreat. He now guessed that the person who used the voodoo doll to curse him was one of the 9 pirate lords, and Davy Jones had appeared here only to save the pirate lord. Fighting with Davy Jones was meaningless. Roy could not kill him, but Davy Jones could not do anything to Roy either. Their battle was pointless, apart from wasting time and expending magic power. So Roy put away Frostmourne, flew into the air, and said to Davy Jones, "All right, I'll let it go this time. But I said before that I won't stop if I can't find those pirates, so you'd better advise the guy you saved. If you want to end this disaster, you'd better hand over those pirates as soon as possible." With that, Roy waved his hand at the sea and grabbed all the souls floating on it with psychokinesis. Unlike normal people, Davy Jones could see souls, so his face could not help but darken, but he did not say anything. As Roy had said, Davy Jones was also helpless against Roy. After all, the battle just now was not only on the sea but also on the Flying Dutchman. It was Davy Jones's home ground. Even so, the Flying Dutchman had collapsed once due to Roy, and it had to rely on the power left behind by Calypso to be reborn. So even if Roy captured a large number of souls right under his nose, he could not get them back. He could only hit the side of the ship and curse, "Damned demon." Then he had his men control the ship and dive back into the water. Roy snatched a pirate ship and used frost power to turn the ship into a new frozen ghost ship before leaving with Fat Tiger and Cassandra. Only Hammond and his surviving pirate subordinates were left floating in the sea, searching for life-saving items. After Hammond boarded a lifeboat, he looked with lingering fear at the sea with floating corpses all around and muttered to himself, "Should I convene a meeting of the pirate lords?" He felt that he needed to hear the opinions of the other pirate lords. Because even if he really wanted to hand over the murderers, he needed to borrow the strength of the other pirate lords to look for them. This was mainly because the information given by the demon was too vague. There were thousands of pirates on the sea, and there were many pirates without ears. As for killing a young girl, all above, there were even more of such pirates. With only a pirate lord like him investigating, when would he be able to find them? Therefore, it was impossible without the help of the other pirate lords. Chapter 107, Chain Reaction. The news that the pirate lord of the Black Sea, Hammond, had failed to kill the demon and was nearly wiped out soon spread throughout the entire Caribbean Sea. Instantly, the pirates became panicked once again. Even those who had never encountered a demon before and felt that demons were nothing special finally realized how powerful the demon was. That was the entire fleet of the pirate lord of the Black Sea. Such a fleet could escape unscathed even if they encountered the Royal Navy fleet, but it was defeated by the demon. In particular, it was said that the demon had almost killed Pirate Lord Ammon. If not for the appearance of the Devil of the Seas, Davy Jones, at the critical moment, the 9 pirate lords might have already become 8. Among the pirates, there was no lack of believers of the church. After hearing this news, these believers could not help but pray, hoping that the Holy Father and the Holy Spirit could hear their prayers and send an angel to eliminate this demon. Now, all the pirates in the Caribbean Sea did not dare to go out to sea anymore, worried that they would bump into the frozen ghost ship. However, the interesting thing was that normal maritime trade became much better because pirate activity was no longer rampant. However, everyone knew that such a situation would not last long. This was the great age of discovery, and there were huge benefits in the ocean. The pirates could restrain themselves for a while, but they could not restrain themselves forever. The key was how to solve the problem of this frozen ghost ship and the demon. After Pirate Lord Ammon returned in a sorry state, he had already sent a message to the other pirate lords, requesting to convene a meeting of the pirate lords to seek a solution. The pirates naturally heard of this news, so they could only wait patiently. Ammon wanted to hold a pirate lord meeting. His intention was to see if the power of the 9 pirate lords could seal this demon, just like the seal on Calypso. However, just over a week later, the news he received was not optimistic. This was because 2 pirate lords had clearly stated that they would not be coming. Every pirate lord had their own territory. But Roy and Cassandra's revenge only affected the Caribbean Sea. The other pirate lords, who were far away, were not affected, so out of selfishness, they did not intend to get involved in the muddy water. They were currently unconcerned. In fact, in the letters, they even mocked Ammon and said that he had overestimated himself. Why didn't he just stay in the Black Sea and wait for it to be over? Why did he have to show off? Now that his fleet was almost gone, he should just swallow his pride, and he could forget about dragging the other pirate lords into the water to take revenge for him. When Ammon saw the replies, he stomped his feet angrily. He wished that he could use the voodoo doll to curse these people who were adding insult to injury. Not only these 2 pirate lords, but he received news that the rest of the pirate lords were also not planning to come. Left with no choice, Ammon could only find Davy Jones again, hoping that he could appear and gather the other pirate lords like the time they sealed the sea goddess Calypso. However, Davy Jones rejected Ammon's proposal without hesitation, and he made it clear that he would not attack the demon again. Davy Jones knew very well that he could not do anything about this demon. Davy Jones's power came from the Flying Dutchman, and his main ability was to control water and waves. But unfortunately, this demon used the power of frost, which was completely different from the legendary demons who used the power of fire. Although Davy Jones could not die, he could not kill this demon either. The only way he could think of was to get the Kraken to think of a way to devour this demon and then imprison him in his own demon prison, which was at the end of the world, a land of nothingness. Perhaps this was the only way to truly trap this demon. However, Davy Jones did not reveal this method to Ammon because the success rate of this method was very low. This demon had frightening strength. Back then, he had almost pulled the Kraken out of the sea. Also, he could fly at high speed. How could the Kraken swallow him like this? Davy Jones was also unwilling to get involved in this mess. The reason why he came to save Ammon was that he was one of the pirate lords and held a portion of the seal on Calypso. All he needed to do was to ensure that Ammon did not die, and the rest had nothing to do with him. As the captain of the Flying Dutchman, he did not need to plunder ships to survive like pirates, and the demon's target was not him either. So was it worthwhile to mutually harm each other with such a powerful demon? Davy Jones was unwilling to deal with it, and the other pirate lords had their own thoughts and did not want to come. At this moment, Ammon also realized that he had no hope of revenge, so he simply decided to ignore it. He brought his remaining fleet back to the Black Sea. This was the Caribbean Sea, not his territory, so there was no need for him to do anything for the pirates here. When the news of Ammon's departure came, all the pirates in the Caribbean Sea were stunned. They were still hoping that the pirate lord would come out and make the decision for them, but they did not expect Ammon to leave them alone. The pirates who had no leader finally started arguing. At the same time, all sorts of ideas popped up. Some advocated gathering all the pirates in the Caribbean Sea to fight the demon together, while others advocated contacting the Church and the Royal Navy to get them to hunt down the demon. Others felt that they might as well find the murderers and hand them over to the demon. Regardless of which argument, there were a large number of supporters. As a result, the 3 parties argued incessantly. Every day, a verbal battle would quickly turn into a group brawl. They would fight until their faces were bruised and battered, but they could not come to a conclusion. Roy was already mentally prepared for this situation. He was very clear that he should not have too much hope for these scattered pirates. However, it did not matter. He continued to attack these pirates on the sea with Cassandra. As long as they dared to go out to sea, Roy would make sure they did not return and harvested their souls. He also knew that the pirates who killed Cassandra must have heard the news and hid. Otherwise, if they still dared to appear at sea, they should have been found by Roy and Cassandra long ago. They had hidden, and the other pirates of the Caribbean Sea had become scapegoats. Roy did not care about this. After all, to him, helping Cassandra take revenge and complete the demon contract was one goal, and the other goal was to gather as many souls as possible so that he would not return empty-handed every time he went to another world. The longer the murderers hid, the more the other pirates would hate them. In the end, they would help Roy dig out these people. The souls Roy collected were all used to strengthen his magic power. In the battle with Davy Jones, Roy found that there were some incredible powers in these alternate worlds. Although Davy Jones's magic was not useful against Roy, the undying characteristics of the Flying Dutchman made Roy feel troubled. Of course, if Roy really wanted to deal with Davy Jones, it was not impossible. When the Flying Dutchman was reborn, Roy could feel that the magic power on the ghost ship seemed to have decreased a little. Perhaps it was because the magic power virus contained in his frost power had swallowed some of the magic power in the ghost ship. If he could freeze the ship and allow the magic power virus to continuously devour the magic power in the ghost ship, he might really be able to destroy the Flying Dutchman from its source. However, the amount of magic power consumed by the virus was too little, and the magic power contained in the Flying Dutchman was extremely powerful. Roy did not know how long it would take the virus to consume it. Perhaps it would take a long time. Therefore, Roy's retreat at that time was because he indeed did not want to continue pestering with him. Apart from the time and effort, he felt that he also had to consider the reaction of the sea goddess Calypso. After all, the Flying Dutchman was hers. If Roy completely destroyed it, it would be equivalent to offending a sea goddess. The following days proved that Davy Jones had no intention of fighting with him, and the Flying Dutchman never appeared in front of Roy again. The pirates of the Caribbean Sea had been arguing for a long time, but they were still unable to come up with an idea. As they became increasingly poor, they realized that they could not continue like this. They had to find someone to take the lead and make a decision. Thus, they began to think of ways to find the Pirate Lord of the Caribbean Sea. And who is the Pirate Lord of the Caribbean Sea? The famous Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow was the captain of the Black Pearl, and his father, Edward Teague, was once the Pirate Lord who dominated the Caribbean Sea. After his father retired and became the keeper of the Pirate Code, he passed the item that sealed Calypso to Jack Sparrow. Therefore, Jack Sparrow was the current Pirate Lord of the Caribbean Sea. However, the problem was that the pirates had not seen Jack Sparrow for a long time. After asking around, they were surprised to discover that there was a mutiny on the Black Pearl. Barbossa, a pirate who had surrendered to Edward Teague because of his bankruptcy, had instigated the crew on the Black Pearl to mutiny because he was unwilling to accept Jack Sparrow as the successor. After they exiled Jack Sparrow, they occupied the Black Pearl. Coincidentally, it was shortly after the appearance of the demon and Lich. Jack Sparrow was exiled, and no one had any idea where he was now. The pirates were even more dumbfounded when they heard the news. They had no choice but to look for Barbossa, hoping that he would come out and take charge of the situation. Thus, the pirates began to search for the Black Pearl. However, what they did not know was that while they were searching for the Black Pearl, Roy's frozen ghost ship welcomed a guest. And this guest was who the pirates had wanted to find at first, the Pirate Lord of the Caribbean Sea, Jack Sparrow. Chapter 108, Another Deal. Although this ship had changed to a frozen ghost ship, its nature had not changed much. Since Roy and Cassandra hated sunlight, Roy had frozen the ship not only to create a sense of mystery but also to use the temperature difference on it to create fog to block the sunlight. As such, the entire ship was actually covered in a thin layer of fog, and only by approaching it could you see the frozen ghost ship clearly. By the time you discovered this ship, you were already very close to it. It felt like a ghost that appeared and disappeared, which was why the people of the Caribbean Sea called this ship a ghost ship. People who sailed on the Caribbean Sea, be it pirates or merchants, had already learned their lesson. Once they discovered any fog at sea, they would subconsciously think that the frozen ghost ship had appeared and immediately choose to detour. If they really could not avoid it, they would carefully stop the ship and wait until they had thoroughly observed the fog before advancing. Everyone avoided the frozen ghost ship. Because of this, when Roy saw that someone had taken the initiative to look for the frozen ghost ship, he was naturally very surprised. In particular, Roy recognized this person at a glance. Jack Sparrow. To be honest, Roy was a little stunned when he saw Jack Sparrow because he greeted him warmly. He was rowing a small boat. As he passed through the fog and approached the frozen ghost ship, he waved his hands at the ship and shouted, "Hey! Wait! Help!" Fat Tiger was the first to hear the sound. He leaned his head over the side of the ship and looked at Jack Sparrow. When Jack Sparrow saw Fat Tiger, he was even happier. He looked up at Fat Tiger and shouted, "Dog! Good dog! Could you lower the rope ladder and let me up?" Fat Tiger tilted his 3 heads. He did not understand why this guy who looked a little crazy did not fear him but wanted to board the ship. At this moment, Cassandra also floated over. She stood beside Fat Tiger and looked down at Jack Sparrow with a cold face. It could not be said that she had a cold face because Cassandra had no face, only a skeleton, so she had no expression. She was staring at Jack Sparrow. Being stared at like this by a skeleton, a normal person's hair would have stood on end. He would not be able to stand it and would want to turn around and flee, but Jack Sparrow did not. Instead, he took off his captain's hat and gave a gentlemanly bow. "Ma'am, I'm so happy to see you." Cassandra was at a loss as to what to do. Although she was a terrifying lich in the eyes of the world, in her memories, she was still that teenage girl. When anyone saw her, they would either be afraid or want to kill her, but no one had ever greeted her like this. Cassandra could not help but turn around and look at Roy, who was sitting in a huge frozen chair on the deck. "Let him come up." Roy was a little speechless. It seemed that Jack Sparrow was as bold as the rumors said. He actually took the initiative to find the ship where the demon, Hellhound, and Lich were. However, he was also curious about what Jack Sparrow wanted to do. Roy, who lacked navigation knowledge, did not realize how difficult it was to find his frozen ghost ship in the vast sea. Fat Tiger lowered the frozen rope ladder from the side of the ship. Jack Sparrow looked at the rope ladder and carefully stepped on it with one foot to test it. After realizing that it would not break, he climbed up the rope ladder. After arriving on the deck, Fat Tiger naturally leaned forward and sniffed Jack Sparrow. Roy could tell that when Fat Tiger moved, Jack Sparrow was very nervous, and his entire body was tense. But after realizing that Fat Tiger had no intention of attacking him, he relaxed and waved his hand gently, carefully trying to shoo Fat Tiger away. Fat Tiger smelled his scent and walked away after realizing that he was just an ordinary person and posed no threat. At this time, like a maid, Cassandra stayed by Roy's side without saying a word, and Roy lay on his chair and looked at Jack Sparrow silently. However, Jack Sparrow did not care at all. He forced a smile on his face and bowed to Roy. "Aha! You must be the great demon king whose fame is spreading like wildfire on the sea. It's my first time meeting you. I'm Captain Jack Sparrow. Captain of the Black Pearl?" Roy did not respond and continued to stare at him. Jack Sparrow shivered, rubbed his arms, and said, "I say, this ship is too cold. Don't you want to make a fire to warm up?" "Well, okay, looks like you're not going to start a fire to warm up." Jack Sparrow could only change his tone. "So, if you don't mind, can I have a sip of rum? Because I can't stand the cold anymore." Roy still did not say anything as he watched Jack Sparrow perform alone. The scene was extremely awkward. Jack Sparrow also realized that his sense of humor seemed to be unable to deal with this situation, so he simply gave up on it. He spread his hands and said, "All right, I'm here to make a deal with you." After hearing this, Roy finally opened his mouth. He slowly sat up and raised his chin to gesture at Jack Sparrow. "Oh? What deal?" Jack Sparrow took 2 small steps, came to Roy's seat, and whispered, "I heard that you were looking for a group of pirates, and one of them is missing an ear, right?" Do you know who they are?" Cassandra could not help but interrupt and ask when she heard this. "Ma'am, I don't know." Jack Sparrow smiled charmingly and said, "But I can help you find them." "You're lying." Cassandra became angry. "You don't even know who they are, so how can you find them?" However, after hearing Jack Sparrow's words, Roy had a flash of inspiration and immediately reacted. Compass. What Jack Sparrow was referring to was his compass that could point in the direction of what he was looking for. As expected, Jack Sparrow took out a small square box from his arms and opened it to reveal the needle inside. He shook the compass and said to Cassandra, "Ma'am, sometimes I don't know who the other party is, and I don't know where they are. This compass has a magical power. When you hold it, it can follow what you wish for the most in your heart and then point out the direction for you to reach it." Roy suddenly reached out and snatched the compass from his hand. Roy held the compass and carefully sensed the magic power in it. He found that the weak magic power in the compass was very similar to the magic power in the Flying Dutchman. It was likely also a creation of the sea goddess Calypso. Jack Sparrow had his compass snatched away by Roy, and he wanted to take it back, but he did not dare to, looking conflicted. Roy looked at him expressionlessly and said, "Since this compass is so magical, aren't you afraid that I'll rob you?" "No, no. You'd better not do that." Jack Sparrow raised his right hand, and his fingers waved gently in an odd gesture as he said, "This compass can only be lent to others if I allow it. If you snatch it from me, it will be useless." Roy looked at the compass and found that the needle was spinning randomly. But this was because Roy did not really want to go anywhere. Roy knew that Jack Sparrow was lying. What did he mean by asking for his permission? Roy vaguely remembered that Barbossa and Lord Beckett seemed to have the idea of taking Jack Sparrow's compass. If they really could not use it without permission, why would these people still have the intention of taking the compass? However, although Roy knew that he had lied, he did not expose Jack Sparrow. After throwing the compass back to him, Roy asked, "Tell me. What do you want?" "Great." Jack Sparrow appraised as he took the compass. "I want you to help me get my black pearl back." Roy was stunned when he heard this. This was because he heard a piece of information from this sentence. At this time, it seemed that Jack Sparrow had just been exiled not long ago. Originally, Jack Sparrow should have gone to find Davy Jones and make a deal with him. Davy Jones helped him get back his black pearl. In exchange, Jack Sparrow had to work hard on the Flying Dutchman for 100 years. However, after taking back the black pearl, Jack Sparrow went back on his word and avoided Davy Jones's pursuit. But now, it seemed that because of his appearance, Jack Sparrow had another target to trade with. Perhaps it was because he heard that Roy and Cassandra were looking for a pirate crew, and Jack Sparrow had something like a mind compass. This made Jack Sparrow realize that the price he would have to pay to trade with Roy might be much less than the price he would have to pay to trade with Davy Jones. Therefore, even though he knew that Roy was a demon, Jack Sparrow still came to him. He knew that making a deal with the demon was a huge risk, but in order to take back the black pearl, he did not care about anything. Roy could understand what he was thinking. If Cassandra's obsession was revenge, then Jack Sparrow's obsession was his black pearl? Should I accept this deal? Roy could not help but think. The sharp nails on his fingers gently tapped on the armrest of the frozen chair, making clear, rhythmic clanking sounds as he tapped on the ice. This sound made Jack Sparrow feel uncomfortable on the silent ship. Although Jack Sparrow felt goosebumps all over his body, he did not dare to speak and nervously waited for Roy's reply. Chapter 109, The Creator's True Intention. When he calmed down and thought about it carefully, Roy realized that he had made a mistake. He should not be another transaction partner of Jack Sparrow but the only one. The real situation was that Jack Sparrow had already looked for Davy Jones once. He had looked for Davy Jones to get the black pearl that had sunk to the bottom of the sea. For this transaction, Jack Sparrow had made an agreement with Davy Jones. Both parties had agreed that after Jack Sparrow was the captain of the Black Pearl for 13 years, he would go to the Flying Dutchman to serve hard labor. When he made the deal, Jack Sparrow probably did not think too much about it. But to his surprise, after the Black Pearl was salvaged, Jack Sparrow only became the captain for 2 years before Barbossa successfully betrayed him. During the past few years, the captain of the Black Pearl had been Barbossa, and Barbossa had been plundering throughout the Caribbean Sea with the help of the Black Pearl's speed. Jack Sparrow could not take this lying down, and he had been looking for opportunities to take back the Black Pearl. Roy had thought that he was Jack Sparrow's other trading partner, but that was not the case. As time passed, the time limit between Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones became less and less. If Jack Sparrow dared to find Davy Jones to help him recapture the ship, even if Davy Jones did help him a second time, he would probably capture him first to fulfill the promise. Davy Jones could only go ashore once every 10 years because he was in charge of the Flying Dutchman. If Jack Sparrow wanted to go back on his word and not fulfill the agreement, he should not go to Davy Jones at this time. Since he could not find Davy Jones, he could only think of another way to regain his Black Pearl. But if Roy's guess was correct, Barbossa and the others were already suffering from the undying curse of the Aztec gold coins and had become neither human nor ghost. For a long period of time, Barbossa and the Black Pearl's crew would rush back and forth to search for the Aztec gold coins scattered all over the place in order to lift the curse. Roy felt that Jack Sparrow must have already known about the situation of Barbossa and the others. Faced with these cursed traitors, Jack Sparrow probably could not think of any good ideas, so he came to find Roy after hearing the news of Roy being a demon. If Roy did not help him, Jack Sparrow could only continue to wander around. It would probably take quite some time until he found Elizabeth, who had an Aztec gold coin, at Port Royal before he could retaliate against Barbossa. After figuring this out, Roy immediately understood that Jack Sparrow was actually begging him, but Roy did not need Jack Sparrow. Although his compass was magical, Roy was now inspired. He could use his souls to create a similar tool through the system to find the murderers. Therefore, Roy shook his head and said, "No. What you proposed is not enough." That's right. This deal that Jack Sparrow had mentioned was completely useless to Roy. For Roy, after harvesting the souls of the pirates, he could find those pirates at any time and help Cassandra carry out her revenge against her first target. Not enough? Jack Sparrow was stunned when he heard this. "I'm just a homeless pirate now. What else do you want? Don't tell me you want my soul like Davy Jones?" Roy glanced at him and said, "What do I want your soul for? There's nothing special about your soul." Yes, in Roy's view, although Jack Sparrow was an important figure in this world, his soul was no different from any other. Ever since he killed Van Helsing in the Van Helsing world, Roy had understood that these fantasy worlds were actually parallel worlds. The history of these worlds could be changed, and the so-called protagonists were only special characters in certain periods. Situations like Van Helsing, who was one of Gabriel's incarnations, were very rare. Furthermore, with Jack Sparrow's character, since he had mentioned his soul, it meant that he had thought about going back on his word. Otherwise, how could a person who had not completely fallen to the bottom take the initiative to trade his soul with a demon? "I'm so sad to hear you say that," Jack Sparrow said. "I thought that Captain Jack Sparrow's soul might be worth more." "Okay, what do you want?" "What do I want?" Roy could not help but glance at Cassandra. Then he extended his claws and slowly clenched his hand finger by finger in front of Jack Sparrow. He said coldly, "What I want is for the people of this world to fear me. I want them to know that my existence represents the existence of the abyss of hell. When people commit unforgivable crimes, the gates of hell will open for them. As for me, Demon Osiris is the judge of the abyss of hell." Although his words were a little silly, they were indeed Roy's heartfelt words. After hearing Roy's words, Jack Sparrow was stunned. The dark circles under his eyes made his expression look rather comical. Wait. Jack Sparrow said carefully, "Are you sure you're a demon and not an angel? Is there a difference between an angel and a demon?" Roy glanced at him. "Have you ever thought about why demons exist? Good and evil are two sides of the same coin. When angels can blow their trumpets to extinguish life, why can't demons bring salvation? Without destruction, how can there be new life? The existence of heaven is to guide the good intentions of people, and the existence of hell is to warn against the malice of people. Is there anything wrong with that?" Jack Sparrow was dumbfounded, and so was Cassandra. But she was lifeless, so no one could tell. However, just as Roy said this, the mist surrounding the frozen ghost ship quietly dissipated. The sun shone down, but it did not give off any ominous feeling. Instead, it felt extremely gentle. The entire sea was strangely calm, and there was not a single movement in the air. The whole sea was as quiet as a mirror, as if the entire world had stopped at this moment. In this strange silence, Roy felt as though there was a voice whispering into his ear. But even though he tried hard to listen, he could still not hear it clearly, and he did not know what this murmuring voice was saying to him. Not only the murmur, but Roy also felt something warm wrap around his body. This warm feeling was neither the sea breeze nor sunlight, nor was it magic power or an aura. Roy could not explain it. He did not know how long this strange situation that seemed as though time was still lasted. Perhaps a few minutes, or perhaps just an instant. When Roy came back to his senses, he found that the air was flowing again, and the surface of the sea was rippling slightly. The murmur had disappeared, and the warmth that enveloped his body had disappeared. Cassandra moved again. She slowly knelt in front of Roy and said, "Master, thank you for your guidance." Although Jack Sparrow was not like Cassandra, he was not as carefree as he usually was. He seriously pondered over Roy's words and said, "Well, perhaps what I heard from the demon is much more real than what I heard from the church." Roy did not care what the two of them were saying. He was still at a loss, wondering what had happened just now. He was certain that it was definitely not an illusion, but when he sensed his body, he found nothing unusual about it. Only when Roy opened the system interface did he realize that something strange had really happened. In Roy's attributes panel, a talent had silently appeared. Voter of the Abyss? There was no explanation, only question marks. The origin was unknown, and the description was unknown. Even when he asked the system, The system did not know what was going on. Roy was really confused. This talent seemed to have something to do with the strange murmur earlier. What was that murmur? The language of all things? The great Tao of Heaven's will? Or was it some other indescribable existence? This murmur appeared after I said those words, which meant that the source of it should be my words. Could it be that my words had exposed the secrets of the heavens? But that isn't right. Isn't it said that exposing the secrets of the heavens brings forth punishment? For example, reducing your lifespan. Why do I have an additional talent? Voter of the Abyss. Although Roy did not understand the true meaning of this talent, just hearing this name alone made him feel that it was extraordinary. It was definitely something good. It came so suddenly that I wasn't mentally prepared. Roy muttered inwardly. At this moment, Roy still did not know how powerful the words he said were. In fact, the fact that he could say those words meant that he had comprehended the true intention of the Creator. For millions of years, as time passed, there were very few in heaven and hell who could remember this true intention. In order to fight for souls, heaven and hell had constantly been at war, and the angels and demons had long forgotten the original intention of the Creator. One side treated themselves as lofty gods, while the other side forgot their original mission and fell into destruction and slaughter, unable to extricate themselves. Now, instead it was Roy, a demon with human thoughts and memories, who had comprehended it from Cassandra. Therefore, the moment he said those words, a power akin to the spirit of language had formed within him. The Creator had long left, but no matter how much time passed, there would always be people who could comprehend his will. And these people were the so-called voters. Roy did not know this at this moment. He could only sigh at how much was still unknown in this mysterious world. Chapter 110, The Demon's Game. Roy could not figure out what had happened to him, so he could only put down his curiosity for the time being. At this time, Jack Sparrow's eyes kept darting around as he observed the situation on the ship. When he realized that what he had proposed was not what the demon in front of him wanted, he began to consider how to escape. It was very dangerous to make a deal with a demon. When the negotiation failed, Jack Sparrow was worried. What if the demon was in a bad mood and directly took away his soul? Roy noticed what Jack Sparrow was thinking. He did not care much about Jack Sparrow's soul, but he would not be a demon if he let him leave his ship so easily. Roy suddenly had an idea. He stood up, walked in front of Jack Sparrow, and bent down to stare straight at him. Although I'm not interested in your deal, you're the first person in this world to find me for one, so I can give you preferential treatment. What kind of preferential treatment? Jack Sparrow asked carefully. Another deal. Roy grinned at Jack Sparrow. Do you like money? Of course. Jack Sparrow shrugging lightly, pretending that he was calm. Who doesn't like money in this world? In that case, I'll give you a chance. Roy extended his right hand in the air, his palm facing the deck. Jack Sparrow was puzzled about what Roy wanted to do, but before he could ask, a golden flash appeared in Roy's hand. Ding! A gold item fell onto the deck and produced a crisp and pleasant sound. When Jack Sparrow heard the sound, his ears immediately perked up. Before he could cry out in surprise, another gold item fell from Roy's hand. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 10 pieces, 100 pieces. Under Jack Sparrow's stupefied gaze, a large number of gold bars continuously fell out of the void and landed on the deck, colliding with the other gold bars and making crisp sounds. Oh my! Oh my God! Jack Sparrow knelt down. Ignoring the danger of being hit by the gold bars, he pounced onto them. However, Roy was still releasing the gold bars from the system's space. Jack Sparrow, who was kneeling, was quickly buried in gold bars. In the end, Roy finally stopped releasing the gold bars when Jack Sparrow was buried with only his head still exposed. At this moment, most of the deck was submerged by the gold bars. The thousands of glittering gold bars made Jack Sparrow's eyes shine, and he excitedly enjoyed this feeling of lying in the gold pile. He did not mind that he was almost buried but instead tried to swim in the gold pile, stirring the gold bars and making clanking sounds. Looking at Jack Sparrow's excited expression, Roy confirmed that humans really could not see the black gas on the gold. After Jack Sparrow had enjoyed himself enough in this pile of gold, Roy said with a calm expression, "How do you like it?" "Oh my God!" Jack Sparrow grabbed a few bars and kissed them hard. "It's true. You're definitely not a demon but a real angel. No, even angels aren't as generous as you. Oh, look at these cute little ones. They're so charming, and their voices are so sweet. They are the cutest things in the world." After seeing the thousands of gold bars, Jack Sparrow's tone toward Roy changed. and he even addressed Roy respectfully. Roy looked at Jack Sparrow, who was seemingly already regarding the gold as his own. He did not say a word and allowed Jack Sparrow to revel in it. After a while, Roy suddenly said calmly, "I know you love this gold, but who told you that I was going to give it all to you?" When these words reached Jack Sparrow's ears, it was like a bolt from the blue. He froze. What did you say? Not giving it to me?" Jack Sparrow turned around in disbelief and looked at Roy with an extremely marvelous expression on his face. Roy returned to his frozen chair and sat down again. With one hand on his cheek, he said to Jack Sparrow, "I still have a lot of gold like this. What you see now is at most 1%. It can even be said that if I take all the gold out, the entire ship won't be able to fit it all." After hearing this, Jack Sparrow took a deep breath, yet his breathing became heavy. Even this ship can't fit all the gold. How much wealth is that? Perhaps due to the stimulation of this wealth, Jack Sparrow's mind was a little clearer at this time. He carefully asked, "Generous Lord, if I didn't hear wrongly just now, you seem to have said you would give me another chance to make a deal?" "That's right." Roy nodded. "The rule of this transaction is that you leave whatever you have on you, and then you can take the same weight in gold from my ship." "How is it? Is it fair? This is the preferential treatment that only you can get." Roy could not help but smile. Although Roy's smile was frightening no matter how he looked at it, Jack Sparrow could not care less and asked impatiently, "Really? Anything?" "Of course." Roy nodded again to confirm with him. He even reached out his hand and made a "please start your performance" gesture. The next second, Jack Sparrow immediately took off his captain's hat and threw it on the deck. Then he took off his coat. Not long after, Jack Sparrow even stripped himself naked. All the clothes on him, along with the messy accessories, his gun, cutlass, rum bottle, and so on, he took everything off. He wanted to exchange these things for Roy's gold. "Very good." Roy moved his finger, and Jack Sparrow's clothes floated into the air. Roy waited and said, "All of these things together can exchange for 2 kilograms of gold." As soon as he finished speaking, 20 gold bars separated from the pile of gold, flew in front of Jack Sparrow, and then fell at his feet. Because he was naked, Jack Sparrow was shivering from the cold on the frozen ghost ship. But when he looked at the 20 gold bars at his feet and then at the thousands of gold bars in the pile, Jack Sparrow instantly felt the huge contrast and hurriedly said, "Wait. Wait. There's more." Roy did not speak and gestured for him to continue. Jack Sparrow seemed to have thought of something, and with his fingers in a strange gesture, he picked up the empty rum bottle from the ground and turned around. A splashing sound came, and an orangish-yellow liquid appeared in the bottle. After he finished peeing, he shook carefully, afraid of leaking a single drop. He kept going until his entire bladder was empty before he turned around and looked at Roy uneasily. Roy was cursing Jack Sparrow in his heart, but he remained expressionless. He nodded, expressing his recognition, and threw 2 gold bars over. Jack Sparrow breathed a sigh of relief and continued to search for something that he could use to exchange for gold. He even cut off his hair, only to find that the hair was too light and could not be exchanged for much gold. Otherwise, Roy thought that he might have even exchanged with the hair below. When he could not find anything in the end, Jack Sparrow suddenly saw the cutlass he threw on the deck. He picked up the cutlass and made a few strokes. Then he hesitantly looked at his arm, which had turned black after not bathing for a long time. At this moment, Roy sat up straight. The most important part of the game was coming. Roy had said earlier that anything could be exchanged for gold, but how much weight could some mere worldly possessions have? Therefore, the player in this game would definitely think of the flesh on his body. With one arm, even the flesh and bones would weigh at least 5 kilograms. And the gold that could be exchanged would naturally be more. Cassandra obviously understood Roy's meaning, so her pair of skeleton eyes were also staring intently at Jack Sparrow, wanting to see what choice he would make. Jack Sparrow held the cutlass in his right hand and gestured on his left arm, but he could not do it. Roy did not rush him and just watched. After struggling for a long time, Jack Sparrow finally gave up. He threw the cutlass aside and said to Roy dejectedly, "That's all I can exchange." Roy did not say anything and nodded. "All right, you can take the gold." Jack Sparrow hugged the gold bars on the ground and carried it to the side of the ship with a reluctant expression. After he returned to the small boat and put down the gold, he slowly rowed the boat away. In the end, he failed to cut his own arm. At the same time, he did not abandon the compass. It was the only thing he had taken away and did not use to exchange for gold. It seemed that in his mind, this compass that he could use to find the Black Pearl was more important than gold. Of course, it was also possible that he planned to use the compass to find Roy's frozen ghost ship again and trade for gold a second time. Who knew what his real purpose was? After Jack Sparrow left, Cassandra asked Roy, "Master, why did you make such a deal with him?" "I just wanted to see how greedy he is," Roy said. "Had he really cut off his arm to exchange for gold, then he wouldn't have been far from death. I wouldn't have treated him, and he would have bled to death in this sea. Even if he could have taken the gold away, he wouldn't have had the life to enjoy it. At that time, I would have taken his soul." Cassandra said, "That means this man has a bottom line. He's not blinded by greed." Who knows? If I told him he could exchange for 10 times the weight in gold, would he still be able to maintain his rationality? Roy smiled and returned to the deck. He picked up the clothes left by Jack Sparrow and found a pendant from the pile of clothes. This pendant was originally on Jack Sparrow's headscarf, and Roy recognized it immediately. "This is one of the tokens of the pirate lords that seals the goddess Calypso, right?" "As expected, I got it without any effort." Roy raised the pendant, looked at the silver coin at the bottom of the pendant, and could not help but laugh. Yes, Roy had not hesitated to make such a trade game, and even endured watching Jack Sparrow's ugly performance, in order to obtain the seal token that his father had passed down to him. This was probably the only thing that Jack Sparrow could have really taken out that could be considered to have bargaining power.